Okay, the meeting's now recording.
All right. Good evening. I'll call this February 13th, 2024 Fairfield Plan and Zoning Commission meeting to order. We will start with our meeting minutes from January 23rd, 2024 and January 25th, 2024. May I have a motion? Sorry. There we go. Back to that. May I have a motion? Commissioner Harrison?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Corsillo, thank you. I assume that's a second. So Commissioner Harrison. Oh, I'm sorry.
I read.
Before I forget, with Commissioner Ford not here, who's on deck for the alternates?
That's an excellent question. I don't have the minutes of the last meeting in front of me, so I can't recall whose turn it is off the top of my head. I apologize.
That's okay.
Between Janine and Joe, they could say who sat last.
Joe, I don't remember. Do you? Sorry, I'm drawing a blank right now.
My recollection is Joe, but I have no basis for that other than just a gut feeling.
I thought it was Joe.
Okay, let's go with it then.
I believe it was Joe.
So Commissioner Pakowski. Sorry, Joe, go ahead.
What am I approving?
I know we were just determining who was up on the alternates, and I think it's Commissioner Pakowski. So we'll go with that. Okay. Commissioner Harrison, your motion?
Yeah, I read the minutes. They look good to me. I don't have any changes to submit.
Commissioner Corsillo?
No comments.
I'll note that the January 25th was an executive session where no motion was taken, no action was taken. It was just a discussion about pending litigation. All right. Any other questions or comments, or can we put this to a vote? You're going to have to speak up, people, because I just can't see everybody. If there is a question or comment. Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye so I can hear you.
Aye.
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 I think that's unanimous 7. So we'll go with that. Let me ask this. Are there any objections or abstentions? Please speak up. Hearing none. Passes unanimously. Moving on to our next item is the request for presentation. Request of Desegregate CT to present proposed work live ride legislation. Mr. Wendt.
I really don't have much, Mr. Chairman. I did send you the email from Desegregate looking for an audience if you were interested in discussing potential legislation that they intend to have raised this legislative session, which opened last week.
Okay, so essentially the request, we need to determine whether we want to accept the request or not, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I had a question.
Well, let's get a motion on the table first. May I have a motion?
I move to deny.
I guess. Okay,
Braun,
motion to deny. Okay, so motion to deny means not to accept the request. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second, Commissioner Harrison. Commissioner Braun.
This came up once before, and I think I sent an email. I couldn't find it this time, but it's the same reasons I gave last time, which is this is not a request for us to do something we normally do, which is a text amendment or supporting a project or an application or talking about the POCD. This is a request to present a platform for state legislative initiatives, and that's not our area. I don't think we should entertain people lobbying for things to go on at the state legislature. And I'm not even reaching the substance of it because I've read their website and I don't really agree with what they're proposing. But that's aside from the fact that I don't think we should be spending time from our commission to entertain people that are trying to promote people that don't live in our town that are basically lobbying the state legislature to pass laws. I don't know if we did do this, then we should certainly accept requests from other groups such as open space groups, Connecticut land. There's a bunch of conservation groups out there statewide and town-wide. There are also groups dedicated to preserving the local authority of zoning commissions, and a lot of the legislation that this group, as well as other groups, have proposed at the state level have been to sort of disenfranchise the zoning commissions or neutralize them in some ways, reduce their authority. So I don't see any point in our entertaining out-of-town lobbyists to come in here and talk about why we should support legislation they are lobbying for at the state level. And if we do, we have to open the floodgates for everyone to come in and do it.
Commissioner Harrison?
Yeah, and I did have a question, maybe this might be appropriate for Mr. Wen. Is there a protocol that we've had in the past on having groups, lobbying groups that don't, reside in our town to speak in front of our commission? Since I've been on the commission, I don't think I've seen this request as an agenda item, so I'm curious if there have been previous commissions that have done that.
Well, previous commissions within the state, yes. This commission, no. This is the first request that I think we've ever received from a group that's proposing legislation for an opportunity to have a dialogue before it's introduced.
Okay. Thank you. Look, Desegregate Connecticut, they obviously, I appreciate their energy and passion and, wanting to come before us. And I know they've done this around the state in the past few years to talk about their legislation. But I think outside lobbying groups coming to our commission really sets a precedent we don't really want to get to. I think of, similar to what Commissioner Braun said, if we have one group in, then we'll have to have, every other group involved or come to our commission. And I would like to get back to the work that we're, supposed to do by statute, like the POCD. We haven't talked about that in a while. We have a very important mandate on voting on a lot of different applications, special permits, and I'd like to focus on the work that we have, which is definitely, giving us full agenda. So I'd like to deny this request respectfully. I would just also like to know, I appreciate, the public weighing in on this too. I think we got over 15 emails on this topic, and it seems like the public wants us to focus on the work that they voted us to do. Thank you.
I have some thoughts, but does anybody else want to speak? Commissioner Corsillo?
Yeah, I will say I'm inclined to allow them to speak. I mean, I think as a couple of folks mentioned, my understanding is they are essentially the authors of this bill, which in my view makes them qualified to speak to it. And I understand and recognize, obviously, they have an interest in this bill and are lobbying for it. Although I think if this was the actual legislator who sponsored the bill, they would similarly be biased in favor of seeing the bill pass. So I'm not persuaded by that argument. And frankly, I think this particular bill does impact the town and the work of the TPZ. So I think it's an opportunity for us to share our thoughts and certainly concerns that I know some members of the commission have and suggestions on the bill. I'm not sure what's in this year's version of the bill or how it's changed. I'd be interested in hearing about that and offering some suggestions for how I think it could be improved. I think it would be a mistake to forfeit that opportunity since it's in front of us. And, I don't think it's a matter of some random organization speaking about some random bill they support to the point about this opening the floodgates. I think if there was another organization that was that had authored a piece of legislation, one that that I personally opposed, I'd certainly want to offer my feedback and suggestions on that also, and would like that opportunity. So I actually would like to leave the door open to that possibility also. So I'm inclined to allow them to speak.
Yeah, I see you, Commissioner Harrison. Let me just see if anybody else wants to speak first.
Steve Levy.
Go ahead, Commissioner Levy.
Yeah. My only concern is we don't have a protocol in place at this point. So I would much prefer that we make a decision as to what extent, if at all, we wish to, periodically accept input from various groups around the state. I think the subject matter or the inclinations of whatever party that wants to come before us is not the issue, since we all should keep an open mind to hearing from everybody along the spectrum, because zoning issues affect so many people in the state. So for right now, I'd rather we had a protocol, but I would like perhaps a response to this request that they simply provide us with links to either their website or whatever information they feel is appropriate. I personally have attended one of the commissioner training that they presented, which was excellent. And then each of us on our own time, if we're so inclined, can broaden our knowledge and awareness of what's going on by reviewing whatever written material they have. And then at a later date, once we have a protocol in place, or if in response to what they provide us, we do wish to, reach out to them, then we can invite them at that point. So for the moment, I'd rather see a protocol in place first.
I'm raising my hand.
I know. I'm just trying to see if anybody else wants to speak before I go back to Commissioner Harrison.
Yeah, this is Jeff. I've got my hand up.
Go ahead, Commissioner Randolph.
I think that we should remain open to new ideas. I think Commissioner Levy's suggestion that we have a protocol is a very good one. So perhaps the first step is to agree to protocol, and some of the other groups that Commissioner Braun mentioned, I think that would be beneficial to hear from them as well. These are all critical issues. There is statewide legislation that's going to influence the town, and being informed on either pending legislation or past legislation will all make us better commissioners. But back to Commissioner Levy's suggestion that we establish a protocol, I think is a prudent first step.
All right. I'll go back to, I'll go back to Commissioner Harrison, not hearing anybody else, then Commissioner Braun, and then I'll speak.
Yeah, I would agree with Commissioner Randolph. I think any new information, new ideas, they're good. They're very positive. They make us better commissioners, better thinkers, better planners for our town. No question about it. I think, all of us should take the opportunity to listen to what they have to say, and other groups as well. I have not seen a bill actually filed yet from Desegregate or the proponent sponsoring it yet. So I don't know what they've actually filed yet, or I think that hasn't been made public from what I understand. But yeah, I think we definitely need a protocol, and I would welcome everybody to hear what they have to say. And I will do the same. I understand that it's going to be focused on transit-oriented development. Luckily, Fairfield's done a very good job with transit-oriented development. In fact, we're going to be hearing or voting on something tonight. Again, I think I'd like to see a protocol in place, because more requests will likely come down the line from Desegregate Connecticut and their contemporaries as well. Thank you.
Commissioner Braun.
I agree. I think before we start accepting groups, we do need to have a protocol. And whether I agree with all the commissioners that said that. I'm not sure I would judge the group coming before us on whether they have lobbied the state to promote specific legislation. I also feel like if we're going to have a protocol, you have to have people on both sides of the development issue, not just one side. Or there has to be some equity or equality in what we hear from, because this bill has not been even proposed yet, as far as I know, but it's being drafted by this group. And, our commission, I don't believe, weighs in as a body on state legislation. I think we can do whatever we want individually, but I think we have to be cautious if we're going to spend a lot of time talking about potential state legislation before it's even passed. So, I guess that would all go to what would go into the protocol. So I don't think we should accept any requests until we have a protocol that is fair, reasonable, informative, and doesn't take up so much of our time, because we have other pressing, legally mandated business that we have to do as well.
All right. Thank you. I would like to hear what they had to say, and I would be in favor of accepting their invitation. I mean, the Commissioner Levy's point about not having a protocol in place is fair. Frankly, because this is the first time I can remember anybody asking for us to present on I'll say pending legislation, because at least it sounds like they're going to introduce it. We haven't seen it yet, but it's the first time that I can remember. And I asked Mr. Wendt, and it's the first time he can remember. So, we don't have a protocol in place because it's probably the first time it's ever been asked of us. So, and I have a feeling, knowing our commission as committed as we are, if we send this to committee, so to speak, we're never going to get a protocol in place anyways. We saw that with our marijuana regulations. I mean, we're busy, we're volunteers, we got a lot of things on our plate, and I can't imagine that we're going to have time for a protocol. And frankly, I don't even know what the protocol could really be at this point off the top of my head. It would be so vague in general that I'm not sure how helpful it truly would be. Having said all that and acknowledging that a protocol would be preferred, here we have an opportunity to listen to frankly, a lobbyist, but a drafter of legislation that was in place, or at least there was a draft last session. Thankfully, most of our transit-oriented regulations somewhat were in line with it, but for what, if I remember correctly, the as of right provisions of it. We have special permit or special exception. I forget which one. They would have as of right, which would, I think, be, not something I would be in favor of, obviously. And I think as a commission, we have learned and we have seen that through dialogue and through applications and this probably wouldn't be a public hearing, but this would probably be a pre-app. But through these conversations, we've had constructive results on pending applications in front of us. And I think it would behoove us to essentially strike while the iron is hot, to get them before they have submitted their legislation, to get a sense of what it is and to give them feedback and to potentially push back on things. And with the hope, I would expect the hope, since they're coming to us, and I would expect in good faith, that there's a chance that maybe we can have some impact on this legislation, and maybe it's toward the town's benefit, because regardless of whether this is state law versus, as people have said, what we've been doing as far as our regulations and applications, this state law will affect us if it's passed. I mean, we've seen enough of these state laws that affect our local ordinances, and to me, I think anytime there's a chance for a dialogue, it's potentially the opportunity is only positive. Maybe they accept it, maybe they don't, but I think we have to take the opportunity to potentially have an impact on this, especially because if it's the same or similar draft as last time, it would have a pretty solid impact on us as the as of right provisions. So, yes, I understand I'd prefer to have a protocol, but if we push this aside to get a protocol in place, I don't think, certainly we'll miss the opportunity in this current instance, but I don't know if sending it to committee is essentially like sending it, is the connotative, sending it to die, so to speak. But I would urge the commission to take the opportunity. I would treat this as a pre-app that could last, they say 15 minutes, maybe a half hour, 45, if we have a really constructive dialogue. And I think that is time well spent. Commissioner Harrison.
Yeah, and I would appreciate your remarks, and I would offer that all of us as citizens, we have 3 wonderful state representatives and a state senator who often reach out to the public for comments and for feedback that they can relay to proponents of bills. We as individuals can also testify at hearings. There'll be a public hearing, I imagine, in the legislature on this bill, and we can also offer our opinion and commentary then.
Yeah, but
Again, I
you
think
can
we
do
have a lot.
so. You can only do so in your individual capacity. I'm saying now they want to come to us. They want to hear what we have to say as a
No,
commission.
if I may,
Take advantage of
I think we have a lot of pressing business to do. I'd like to get back to our POCD. I'd be happy to take this up in, to do, figure out a protocol in a timely manner in a committee. I would have happily done that with marijuana as well. I just don't know the procedure to create a subcommittee. So, no. Anyway, that's my.
I'm pretty sure based on the short session they have right now, which started last week,
Commissioner
this bill
Braun, I
has already
wasn't
been
quite done.
drafted. Oh, I'm sorry, Catherine Braun speaking. Yeah.
No, I just wanted to say one more thing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was I interrupt? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. Sorry.
I would just like to say if we do have desegregate come to our commission, I'd like to have the public be able to weigh in as well, because they offer feedback too. They're stakeholders too. So if we do allow them, I hope we can allow the public to weigh in. But now I'm done. Thank you. Sorry, Commissioner.
I would like, I'm aware of a couple of other bills that are being proposed. One has to do with modification of 8-30G to protect water company towns that are watershed lands. I would hope that we would invite them to speak as well, because even though we're not a watershed town, we are adjacent to one, and we get our water supply. Part of the reservoirs are in our town, now that I think of it. And we recently sustained a 7 million gallon a day diversion of water from our reservoirs to other parts of the state. So I would hope that we would also invite the proponents of that bill, as well as any other bills that have anything to do with open space preservation, farmland preservation, et cetera.
Chair Noonan, Commissioner Pekoski has her hand raised too.
Go ahead, Commissioner Pekoski. Thank you.
Hi there. I've actually been on both sides throughout this conversation, but right now I'm kind of landing in the space of thinking about if we were to establish a protocol, what would the purpose of that protocol be? Would it be how we receive the information, or would it be how we either invite or deny a request for a presentation? And I'm leaning toward us saying that the protocol would actually be for us to establish like whether or not we let somebody present, and that would be as simple as us whether or not we vote this to come to us as a presentation, right? And then we can provide a time limit on that presentation. So that's not necessarily a protocol around like how we're receiving it and that we let everybody come before us, but it's more about like we see this as this is directly applicable to the work we do. It would increase our knowledge as commissioners. So if we vote it as something worthy of our time, great, here's a time limit. If somebody comes before us and we don't see it as worthy of our time, then it's denied. So that's where I am. So I am inclined to support this almost being the protocol for somebody coming before us.
Commissioner Levy.
Yeah, based on the, Mr. Chairman, your compelling argument, I still feel we need a protocol, but based on what you had to say about this particular presentation, I think in this case it would be to our advantage to listen to them and put it on our agenda to promptly prepare a protocol which would address in the future the manner in which people would submit their request, which might include providing written materials or summary in advance so we know what the focus of it and make an informed decision in the future. But so I sort of modify my prior position. We do need a protocol, but in this particular case, it being number one, I would go ahead and see what they have to say. Thank you.
My hand is raised.
Go ahead, Commissioner Braun.
If we're going to have a protocol, I think it should apply on day one. And there could be a dozen bills. Every section, there appear to be half a dozen bills or more relating to development, housing, more bills that relate to environmental protection. All of this are areas that would govern us eventually. And I think we do need a protocol so we don't give special treatment to one proponent of one bill as opposed to maybe a dozen others that could be up there in Hartford right now or being proposed in the next week or so. I also feel that we do need a threshold issue of how to decide who will come before us. And then logistically, what do we need ahead of time so we can be prepared for what the presentation is, so we're not just, sort of sitting there having someone proselytize a platform to get buy-in as opposed to know what it is ahead of time. I'd almost, I think these bills are probably in process right now. I don't think we're going to have any influence over them from our perspective. I do believe this group goes around to many zoning commissions and has in the past. And the bills that have been proposed, in my experience, my studying of them has been that it has not reflected concerns that have been expressed, because all these bills tend to remove local authority. That's a problem. They remove local zoning authority to a large extent. So I don't think we should give special treatment to one proponent of one bill when there could be dozens out there. And I did mention one that I'm aware of that would protect our state's water supply. We should have a way of figuring out who should be coming and who should not be coming. Because again, we are not state actors. We just carry out the law locally.
Anything further? Can we put this to a vote? The current motion is to deny, which is to deny the request to participate, or deny the request to present. So all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. To deny the request?
To deny the request. Oh, Commissioner Ford, did you came in, Commissioner Ford?
I did.
Okay. Did you have anything else to? Well, never mind. You said something. All right. So we have Commissioner Ford, Harrison, and I assume Commissioner Braun as well.
To deny.
Yes. You deny. Your vote is to deny, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Of course. All right. All those opposed, please say aye.
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 I heard obviously myself, Commissioner Levy, Commissioner Corsillo, Commissioner Randolph. I didn't hear you one way or the other.
Aye.
Aye for what?
The second motion to not.
You
deny.
want the invitation.
There's only
You
one
want to-
motion.
Yep.
I know. You want
Nay.
I know.
Nay.
Nay. So you want to hear that. You want
I
the
want to hear
presentation.
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
That's fine. I just want to be clear.
Sorry.
All right. So, all right. We can't have a negative. Commissioner Levy and I have gone back and forth on this. So the motion to deny fails, but we need a motion, an affirmative motion. So may I have an affirmative motion to accept the invitation? Commissioner Levy,
I would move to accept this invitation to have them present to us, and that we simultaneously commit to preparing a protocol. And we also, in responding, request that they submit whatever relevant written information they can in advance of their presentation.
okay. I mean, I
can
think
make it
that,
simple.
yeah, I know. I mean, I think the item is to accept the invitation or not. I'm not going to, maybe
Okay.
you can have requests,
I'll amend that.
recommendations for approval.
I move to
for the other-
accept.
Yeah, I mean, I
Can
think
we add
recommend
them? Can we add the public being able to weigh in on their presentation?
I mean, right now it's a presentation. It's not, the whole point of a public hearing is when we actually have action. I mean, this to me was going to be a pre-app, but I'll let the commission decide that. That's fine.
I mean, I think we
I would
receive a lot of
also-
emails from the public, so I think they obviously have interest, so would love to hear their
I know.
feedback.
Yeah,
I
I
would
mean,
also like to have, no.
well, hold on. Let me get a second first. Let's get this. Is there a second? Commissioner Corsillo seconds. Commissioner Levy, it's your motion. Maybe if you can speak to, I mean, obviously you want the protocol. I get that. Materials in advance, fine. I mean, public comment or this be a pre-app. I mean, if you want to speak to that, I have some thoughts, but I think I've already shared them. But
Yeah. I would have no objection, but we could decide at that point, once we've heard it, if there's, people want to have comment and, maybe allocate 15 minutes for public comment at the time, if people have questions as well. But that would just be a recommendation.
Commissioner Corsillo.
I'm okay with that. I have no objection to folks speaking, as long as we have some parameters around that.
Okay.
I do view it as more of a pre-app, but I think we could make an exception to the normal pre-app procedures and allow public comment.
It's much different than a pre-app. I mean, it's essentially them wanting us to get buy-in into their legislation, Tom. So I don't view it as a pre-app.
Well, I view it exactly like a pre-app, actually. I think that's the best analogy. They want us to get a sense of how we feel about it and whether we buy into it or whether we give, I'll say, constructive feedback, negative feedback. It's the same thing as a pre-app. It's exactly what we do with that with that application.
To
I mean, certainly everybody comes to us with a pre-app. We're like, hey, what do you think? And we're like, yes, no, we like this, we don't like that, we prefer this. I mean, that's essentially what they're asking for here. And if you want public comment, I guess that's fine. But I mean, that kind of goes to what everybody was saying earlier. Everybody can do it as they want, and you can send in emails. But if you want public comment, that's fine. I mean, I'm not going to. That's fine.
Hand is raised.
What?
My hand is raised.
Kathy, go ahead.
Can you see it?
No, I can't.
AAA's taking a long time. I'm stuck in the snow and the ice. Anyway, okay. I agree that public comment should be allowed, and I think the whole session should be limited in time. And to help make it more efficient, they should provide the current status of whatever is being proposed, in the whole verbiage of whether they're proposing and the status of where it is in the state legislature. Because in fact, this is a legislative activity that they are doing, and that's why they're doing it. So it's not exactly like a concept review because it's not going to come before us, but their goal is to inform us and get buy-in on what they're already proposing, which they probably already drafted. So I think the more information we have up front, the more efficient our time will be with them. So they should be required to provide whatever the materials are, maybe even a copy of their presentation, as well as the actual piece of legislation they're proposing, whatever the draft is, or if it's already got a bill number, send it to us, and maybe even give us the procedure that it will be going through in Hartford in the time frame. And that should be sent to us, X days before the hearing and posted on our website so we can all have access to it, not the day of.
No, that'd be great. I would prefer that. I mean, normally also with public comment, the tradition has been not to put a time limit. Are people okay with maybe this being a little different, putting a 3-minute time limit on comments, public comment? Should there be any public comment?
Limiting public comment would be helpful because the objective of this is to limit the time that we're discussing it. The concern has been this is taking up too much time, so a time limit would be appropriate.
All right. I mean, I'm fine. I think that's a fair exception in this. I mean, that way we distinguish it from a pre-app because I don't really want to get pre-apps to have public comment. So I'm okay with that. I'm going to assume silence means or could infer agreement, if that's okay.
Mr. Chair, you have Commissioner Ford who would like to speak.
Yes, sorry. Commissioner Ford, please speak up when you get the chance because I just can't see everybody.
Okay. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Thank you.
My position is kind of fundamentally, I disagree with the process altogether. I don't think we have elected legislators in this town that represent everyone who lives here, who's voted for them. So I think it should be up to them. If there's something happening in the legislature that they think that's going to impact, our local zoning regs or, or anything in town of Fairfield, then they should be reporting not only to the people they represent, but to the town commissions as well. So that's where I'm coming from. I don't know much about this organization. I don't know why they, are presenting it this way. We don't have a seat at the table as to whether we support or object to whatever they're presenting, or pushing, what their agenda is. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. I understand your analogy, Commissioner Noonan. I agree with you. Yeah, it's like a pre-application, but really this should be for a subcommittee in the legislature with our local reps who should be getting that information. We don't have a say, a vote. It doesn't matter what we do. If they can present, some, unbelievable great idea that we all totally support, but that's all we can do. We can't vote it into law. Only our reps can do that, and obviously signed by the governor. So that's where I am. So I think I see it more as a slippery slope than, let's create this mechanism, so that we can, invite this kind of information, or anytime a group has some sort of legislation pending or has a grand idea that they think that the local zoning commission should hear about. I don't know. I just think it's it opens a Pandora's box, in my opinion. And I haven't looked at anything. I don't even know what they're presenting, to be honest with you. I just kind of fundamentally have a problem with it. That's all. I'd rather. I guess what I would say is if we're going to permit them to come in and present, then I'd like to have all our representatives here too. I'd like to know what their position is on it as well, whether they're going to support it or not support it, because I think that's the fair way to do it. So that the public knows what their elected representatives are going to do, whether they support it or not support it, or maybe they're neutral. Who knows? Yeah. That's why I oppose it this time.
No, and that's fair, Commissioner Ford. I mean, the way I said it earlier was, they came to us asking for this, and I've never heard. This is the first time I've even been aware that anybody's even asked that. Nobody's asked it as far as my tenure. And Mr. Wendt kind of, said they get, and I won't put word. Well, he'll speak up if I'm wrong, but he doesn't remember it either. So, they're coming to us, and I just had a thought that I'll bring up in a second with maybe an amendment. But if they're coming to us in good faith, why not take the opportunity to potentially provide constructive feedback? Because I don't know what the bill is either, but the last bill in the last session, our regs were kind of on point, except for the fact that their bill was as of right, as opposed to us being a permanent, special permit or exception, which I would fight hard against. And, maybe there's a chance we can, provide constructive feedback that could actually modify the bill to something that we would like. And, we've seen that in the past where applications come and we have constructive dialogue and, a better application happens. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen, which actually leads me to what I think is maybe an amendment. Maybe the amendment should be, Commissioner Levy, we will accept if they come in good faith to listen to potential constructive criticism. If they're just coming to present what they're going to do without, and this is like even one of those vague things of, just got to listen. If you're just going to present and that's it, then yeah, maybe we don't really want to listen to them. But if they're going to present and listen to our feedback and take it into account, no guarantees that they're going to accept anything and revise anything. I wouldn't expect that. But maybe that's the extra amendment is we would like to hear you, but if this is just a presentation to just show us what it is without listening to us, then no, we don't have the time for it.
Hand is raised.
Wait, my hand's raised too.
Hold on. I brought that. I said directed that to Commissioner Levy.
Yeah, in terms of the amendment, yeah, I would be receptive to an amendment that we listen to them, provided that they are prepared to accept feedback from the commission as well in response to whatever they present.
Yeah, I mean, I would ask Mr. Wendt to go and just say, listen, if you're just going to present something to us and, hey, look at what we did, and that's the end of it, and, put the earphones on and not listen to us, then yeah, I agree. That's not what I would want this to be, and I think that's a waste of time. But I mean, if there's a good faith, I guess promise or rep that they will listen to us and take back our feedback, then yeah, I think we should take the opportunity for it. Mm-hmm. But with that amendment, Commissioner Corsillo, are you okay with that amendment?
Yeah, I'd accept that.
All right. Then next to Commissioner Harrison.
Yeah, thank you. And I guess I think their work, live, ride bill, I don't know, this is like their third year or so of doing this. I'm not really sure. What if it's written and filed by the time they come and speak to us? I mean, how much feedback can we actually do or give them that they'll actually have to heed? I mean, we can say, we hope that you'll heed our feedback, but they're not bound to do that.
Of course not.
I hope they do come in good faith to hear from commissioners who are, on the ground doing the work. And, we know the nuances of Fairfield. We've done TOD here for many years. I just don't know how much of an influence we can be on changing any things that we may not like in it. So I'm not as optimistic as you may be.
Oh, and let me be clear. I mean, I'm not sure how optimistic I am either, but I think it behooves us to take the opportunity to try when if it's a regular state law that could potentially affect us.
Well, I agree with that, Commissioner Noonan. That's why I would want, if we're going to do this, get our local reps here. Let's hear from them because they have a seat at the table. We do not.
No, and that's fair. I mean, I don't want to blow this up as to all of a sudden we get the reps in and all this stuff. They should come. I mean, we should be notifying them directly and all that stuff. But I mean, I don't, if they don't want to speak, I'm not going to force them to. And they have their own platform. Obviously, they're the state reps. They're going to come to them. So, I mean, the people they've asked to come to us, this desegregate group. So, I mean, that's what I'm focusing on. Commissioner Braun, did you have something? I couldn't tell.
Yeah, I was going to say, Commissioner Ford said what I was trying to say much better than I said it, but I agree with him. We're not a state legislative body. We're a town legislative body when we pass regulations. And this group is a proponent of legislation, but it's the legislature that passes it. So if they've proposed something and different legislators up there are sponsoring it and putting it forward, I don't see how anything we do right now is going to do anything. I've seen their website. I've seen the same thing is in there about prioritizing people that opt in to the scheme. And therefore, discretionary state funding would be deprioritized from people who don't opt in. That's still on their website. That was the same as last year. They're throwing a bone about environmental issues, but I don't know. The devil's in the details. We'll see if it really is any consideration of environmental issues when the details come out. But our representatives are the ones who will be involved. And if they're not here, I don't see the point. These people are seeking an audience. I think it's already been written, and they've got a website with what they want to do already. I've looked at it. I've compared it to what they had last year, the year before, and they all have the same components that I don't like. Removing our local authority, that's never changed. In other words, once you opt in, you pretty much, you lose a lot of control over what you do. And if you don't opt in, you're at risk for losing discretionary state funding. So I don't see that has changed, but that's getting to the substance of it. But again, the die is cast. That's what they're proposing is on their website, and they're just coming to us to get buy-in. And I think the people that we need to be talking to are our legislators, and they should come to us at some point. So I don't see why we should entertain this without talking to the people who will actually be voting on it.
Well, it's nothing for us to entertain. I mean, they want to present, and I'm sure they want feedback. I mean, not entertaining anything other than, like we would as far as voting on it. Obviously, we're not a state body, so. But I mean, listen, I don't think we need. I'm not going to repeat what we've said previously. So, anything further? Motion is to accept the invitation with the, I guess, caveat or the representation on their part that they are going to receive constructive feedback, not just present something and put the earphones on. Mr. Wendt, is that clear? Not exactly the most eloquent, but
Depending on how the vote goes, we'd have to.
no, that's fine. As long as it came across, not my most.
I understand the caveats that have been discussed.
Okay. Thank you. Not my most eloquent summary, but all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right. I think I saw Commissioner Randolph, Casillo, for Levy, myself. All those opposed?
Nay.
Harrison?
I mean, both. Braun.
That's fine.
Fortson,
Mr.
no.
Braun, Harrison, Commissioner Ford. Okay. I just want to get. I only have 6, as I think with yourselves. I only have 6 people, 6 views. So I just want to make sure I get everything accurate. So 4-3 in favor. Okay. Thank you for the discussion. Next item is old business, the zoning regulation amendment, application of the Plan and Zoning Commission to amend section 2.4 of the zoning regulations, the prohibited uses, 2.4.1 cannabis. Mr. Wendt.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, as this commission knows, our regulations have prohibited the retail sale of cannabis since February of 2022. The commission has extended that on a yearly basis. Last year, I shouldn't say last year, the 2022, late in 2022, the legislature amended the statute. So the original statute had a population cap on how many establishments could be in a community based on a population if you were to make it a permitted use. They've eliminated that cap, so we can no longer cap the number of permitted uses. Our prohibition is expiring, so we're proposing to extend that prohibition. And what we've put for your consideration in the public hearing was to terminate the end date of that, thereby making the prohibition indefinite, so we don't have to do this on an annual basis. It does not preclude someone from making an application for an actual discrete location in the future. And if that is something that the commission is inclined to support, someone can still make that application like any other applicant for a zoning regulation amendment. But what we're suggesting at the moment is to eliminate the end date of the prohibition, thereby making the existing prohibition indefinite. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Wendt. May I have a motion? Commissioner Levy.
I would move to amend section 2.4 of the zoning regulation by deleting the end date and thereby making the prohibition indefinite.
Is that and Mr. Wendt, that's currently the item? Is it essentially a motion to approve at this point?
It is. If we don't amend the regulations in any respect, it's going to be a default permitted use.
Fair enough. Okay. So the motion, as Commissioner Levy said, is to approve the regulation amendment to make it an indefinite prohibited use. Did I say that right?
By deleting the end date.
Okay.
That's in the regulation.
Okay. Thank you. Is there a second?
Commissioner Harrison?
Okay, I didn't see you. Commissioner Harrison, seconds. Commissioner Levy, excuse me.
Yeah, I think as per our prior discussions on this matter, that having retail sale of cannabis in the town of Fairfield presents an unnecessary risk and threat to particularly the youth in our community. And based upon that, I think we should make amend the regulation and make our prohibition indefinite.
Commissioner Harrison?
Yeah, I think Commissioner Levy summed it up very well, and I have nothing else to add. Thank you, Commissioner, for your well said motion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone other comments from the commission?
Commissioner Ford, just real quick, I know that there's a dispensary now at the bottom of Dewey Street on Commerce Drive. It's pretty much, Fairfield East, and I think that's sufficient to meet the market demands here in the town of Fairfield. So that's really why I would why I'm supporting the motion.
Yeah, I'm in support of the motion. I think Commissioner Ford's notation of the Bridgeport facility close to Fairfield is a fair point. Certainly what we do, anybody, as Mr. Wentz said, can come to us if they had a discrete application, and we would certainly listen to it. I mean, I think Commissioner Levy's points are well taken. Commissioner Harrison agrees, and I agree as well that while I would certainly keep an open mind, I think it would be an uphill battle. I think keeping marijuana out of the town is a good idea. I might be persuaded as to medicinal marijuana, but again, that's not something we need to worry about today. I think the motion is the appropriate motion at this point.
Mr. Chair,
I have a comment.
Commissioner Randolph and then Commissioner Corsillo who would like to speak.
Sure. So we'll go Randolph, Corsillo, and Braun.
Okay. I'll be brief. I think that the points made regarding the proximity of other dispensaries is a good reason to say that the availability of marijuana is in close proximity. I think that the presentations at our last meeting were overwhelmingly opposed to opening a dispensary. I think that I would agree with Commissioner Newton that in the event someone approached us, that we would consider it under specific circumstances. But I'm in support of the ban currently stated.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Corsillo?
Thanks. I'll be brief also. I mean, I think I'm alone on this one. I happen to believe alcohol is far more dangerous than cannabis, and I say that as someone who's a big fan of Connecticut's fantastic breweries and someone who generally abstains from cannabis. But I think an outright prohibition is a bit of an economic gift to neighboring towns and sort of goes against the entrepreneurial spirit I think we should be fostering. So, I mean, I appreciate the comments that we received from the folks who were opposed to this, but I will be voting. I think the only one voting against this measure.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Braun?
Yes, I recently contacted Brian Caffarelli up in Hartford. He is with the Department of, I think, Consumer Protection, whatever the agency is that manages the health and safety measures. He said Department of Revenue Services collects the taxes, but he did give me some information. And gross sales in the state for 2023, which I think is the first full year, was well over $200 million, of which somewhere around 20% would be taxable. Medical is not taxed. Towns themselves get to have another excise or sales tax of 3%. So it could be a huge revenue generator, job generator, business generator, if there's a way of doing it safely, where you don't just have, vaping lounges everywhere with marijuana. I'm inclined not to not to ban it permanently, because I think having a conversation once a year is helpful. I do recognize that there is one in right on the edge of Fairfield and Bridgeport. And I have heard that Westport has one that's medical. I'm not sure about that. I'm just remembering when a very ill family member had to go through a huge rigmarole and never actually did it, because 5 years ago or so, it was extremely complicated to get a script filled for medical marijuana. This person was in such pain, it was almost suicidal. Okay. I do not picture people wanting to drive to Bridgeport to get a script filled. So I think for all those reasons, I would prefer just to extend the moratorium for another year, collect more information. There are pros and cons. It's not all negative. And I think it's huge revenue and business generator if it can be done right. So I would prefer to keep it on for another year, and just support another 1 year moratorium rather than a permanent ban.
Commissioner Harrison.
Yeah, and I would just note that even though we were going to have more of a permanent moratorium on this, it actually doesn't preclude a potential operator to come here to make a future application to modify regulations. Applicants, developers do it quite frequently. It may not be ideal for somebody else to write our regulations, but that is still an option. And I think Mr. Went said that at the previous hearing when we were discussing this. So I just want to put that in the record again.
Yes, I mean, we said it. Yeah, obviously, all we're doing is taking out the end date, so we don't have to keep coming back every year or two if we set it. I mean, people have kind of expressed their, at least maybe some, I'll say, preliminary thoughts on the matter. But any applicant can certainly come with discrete or application, regulation amendments, site plan, all that stuff. So that is, we are not foreclosing that. And again, we're touching on it, obviously, but I think maybe not directly, as we're talking about, again, the moratorium dealing with the state statute. So, people haven't touched on it preliminarily, but, any applicant is free to come back in the future. Commissioner Harrison.
Yeah, I would just add, and sorry, I don't mean to belabor this, but I think maybe we do want to, if we do want to extend this for a year, I think that's what Commissioner Braun is suggesting. I think we do really, I think we've said this many times. I think we do need to delve into what it really means for Fairfield. What are the economic, benefits? I don't think we've really heard from Mr. Barnhart on this really quite yet. So I'm happy to keep an open mind, but I just think I think we really need to, I don't think we've really delved into it that much.
Yeah, I have a comment.
Who does?
Yeah.
Commissioner Braun, go ahead.
I was going to say, I agree with Commissioner Harrison, also Commissioner Corsello, that this is business, and we're giving it away to our neighboring communities. So I just think having it come up forces us to have the conversation and do the research. I wish I had been able to get more information from the DRS, the Department of Revenue Services, because I'm sure it exists as far as what every town is generating in revenue for the past year, 2023. That data is probably just recently available. I saw it statewide, and you can see anecdotal information just here and there, but I'm sure the DRS has it by town. I just haven't been able to get it yet for the year. And that would be very, very helpful for this conversation. So I would just like to see the moratorium extended for a year, and then have us make a dedicated effort to get the information, the pros and the cons.
Further comments? Can we put this to a vote?
Could you repeat what we're voting on exactly? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to repeat it. I mean, right now the motion, it's okay. The motion on the table is to approve the regulation amendment, which will remove, which will prohibit, well, Mr. Wendt, can you say it a little better than me? It's to, or
the motion is to approve the regulation amendment to eliminate the termination date of the prohibition, thereby making it indefinite.
Thank you. Any questions, or can I put this to the vote? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
I see 4. Commissioner
Aye.
Randolph,
Aye.
Levy,
Ford, aye.
Harrison, Ford, and Noonan. So I got 5. All opposed?
Nay.
Please say
Aye.
nay. Yeah,
Braun.
that's easier.
Nay.
Okay. Commissioner Braun and Corsillo opposed. Yeah, sorry. I think I've said when you're opposing to say aye, but nay would be easier. Thank you. Okay, so motion passes 5-2. Thank you for the conversation. Okay. Next item is 81 Black Rock Turnpike, special permits and coastal site plan applications and requests for determination that the property qualify as a transit-oriented development park. Excuse me. Application of Post Road residential pertaining to a 245-unit residential development with commercial mixed use in the Design Industrial District, the Commercial Commerce Drive Design District. Mr. Wendt.
Okay, Mr. Chairman. The application before the commission seeks, as you just mentioned, a transit-oriented development park designation pursuant to section 13.14.5 zoning regulations and special permits and coastal site plan approval pertaining to a proposed mixed-use development comprised of 245 residential units and co-work office space on a former factory site in Brownfield. This development proposal is designed to comply with recent zoning regulation amendments proposed by this same applicant and that were approved by this commission on May the 9th of last year. Those amendments implemented certain recommendations from the transit-oriented development study that was adopted by the commission in 2019. The proposed building is 5 stories and approximately 60 feet in height. The street-facing portion of the building has ground-level amenity and co-work office space, while the majority of the building is 4 occupied stories above grade-level parking. The residential portion of the development is comprised of 21 studios, 122 one-bedroom units, 92 two-bedroom units, and 10 three-bedroom units. Pursuant to section 13.14.7 of the regulations, 12% or 30% 12% or 30 units will be deed restricted for affordable units at 80% area median income. Those units include 3 studios, 15 one-bedroom units, 11 two-bedroom units, and 1 three-bedroom unit. Pursuant to section 13.14.4, non-residential use shall occupy an area of not less than 20% of the total floor area. And given that this site is not on a retail priority edge, as identified in our TOD study, this requisite area is just over 57,000 square feet, is comprised of the co-work office space that they're proposing, ground floor amenity space, public open space, and shared pedestrian easements that facilitate pedestrian access to the adjoining Fairfield Metro Station in the now newly opened illicit brewing site. A new sidewalk with landscaping and pedestrian amenities is proposed along Ash Creek Boulevard frontage. Parking required is 19 spaces for the co-work office and 307 spaces for the residential units for a total of 326 spaces. There are a total of 313 provided, 68 surface spaces, and 245 garage spaces. Section 28.9.1 of the regulations provides that no property shall be penalized for the elimination of parking spaces that could have otherwise been provided in order to facilitate joint access between adjacent parcels. Joint access is being provided here to the illicit brewing site. Their existing curb cut on Ash Creek Boulevard will be closed and a common shared access drive is proposed. A total of 22 parking spaces have been eliminated from the development to facilitate that joint access between the sites. And giving credit to those spaces that could otherwise have been provided would result in compliant parking 313 spaces plus those 24 is 337, which exceeds the 313. With respect to storm drainage, the applicant's engineer explained that due to the site location being at the bottom of the Rooster River Ash Creek watershed, stormwater detention is not recommended, so that site flows can be discharged to Ash Creek prior to upstream peak flows. Reaching that discharge point, water quality improvements are being provided through gross particle separator prior to discharge, and the engineering department has confirmed their acceptance of that methodology. Both the applicant and staff coastal site plan reports have been provided. In addition, Connecticut DEEP reports that the proposal is consistent with all applicable coastal policies. The applicant has designed the development to pay homage to the site's industrial past and asserts that the proposal is consistent with the Commission's vision for the redevelopment of this area. Considerations for a special permit are familiar to you in section 25.7.7. Is the development shown on the site and architectural plans of such characters to harmonize with the neighborhood, to accomplish a transition in character between areas of unlike character, protect property values in the neighborhood, preserve and enhance the appearance of the beauty of the community, and avoid undue traffic congestion. That is all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Went. May I have a motion on the item?
I'll make a motion.
Commissioner Corsillo?
I move to approve the special permits and coastal site plan applications and to recognize the property as a transit-oriented development park.
Thank you. Commissioner Levy, can you second that? Or
Yes.
Yeah. He beat you to the punch. Commissioner Corsillo?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is exactly the type of development I think this commission has envisioned for the area. I think it's the type of development, the zoning regulations, particularly as amended by this commission in May, based on the recommendations from the TOD study, are meant to facilitate. And while there's certainly a need for homes throughout Fairfield, not just where density exists, I think we do have a responsibility to add density where we have the infrastructure to support it, like we do here. And I also just want to commend the applicant and their team. I find this to be a thoughtful proposal. I think it'll help create the critical mass that I think is needed to attract additional development of, not only housing, but on adjacent sites, complementary retail. I appreciate the architectural nod to the former manufacturing uses, the landscaping plan. So, and then on a technical note, I believe the application does meet the considerations for a special permit, primarily for the reasons I just outlined.
Thank you, Commissioner Corsillo. Commissioner Levy?
Yes, I concur with Commissioner Corsillo's comments. In particular, I think this is a very well-designed project. It also provides affordable housing, consistent with our regulations at 12%, 80% income levels. As far as the considerations of the special permit, I mean, I think the well-designed plans, they do harmonize with this neighborhood that's developing there. I like the access, the joint access, the various steps that were taken to facilitate pedestrian movement and open space, and also access to the train station. And it's also consistent with the Metro Center development that's going up nearby. So I think it'll enhance the neighborhood, consistent with our POCD. As far as it being designated a transit-oriented development district within the district, I mean, it basically meets the definition. It's a mixed use, it's within walking distance of a commuter rail transit, and it's appropriate to the existing neighborhood context and character. So for all of those reasons, I would approve the special permit. As far as the coastal site, the coastal management plan, their plan will actually improve the water quality through the separation. So that'll enhance actually the water quality. So for all those reasons, I would approve and designate it a transit-oriented district.
Commissioner Harrison? You're on mute.
Four years into this, still doing that. Sorry.
Old
No,
habits.
yeah. No, generally, I do like this project, but I think I said this at the last meeting. I really wanted to keep the public hearing open. This is one of the most massive developments our town has seen since, aside from the Metro Center, has 245 units and a public entertainment space. I think, the burden is on the applicant to present us with the materials so we can be fully informed. I don't think they've adequately done that. Last year, we changed our zoning regulations based on their text amendment up for the project. I wish we had given them, a higher threshold to allow more affordability there. I think I won 15%. They gave, we approved 12. They've also received a grant last summer for the brownfield remediation. I just don't think we have this clear picture of exactly what the project will be, despite because they haven't even applied for the DEP yet. I think that will ultimately affect the design because the DEP will have control over the remediation. On other brownfield projects such as this one, like Exide and Metro Center, the remediation was not only applied for, but they actually completed that before any development was proposed to the TPZ. So I think we're really missing a very important and critical component for this project. We only received information from the town engineer the night of the hearing, in the middle of our hearing. I don't think that reflects well of our town. And last week we got another short email saying questions were answered. So I think that our engineering department, who is really the technical advisor of our town, should have appeared before us on this complicated project. It's massive, like I said. I don't even think we were given the code review minutes before the hearing, which are very lengthy. I think they're 6 pages long. I think we got them after. And I don't think we were given, an adequate coastal site plan review either. In the past, we always get, pretty comprehensive site review plans, and we didn't do this in this case. So for those reasons, I will be abstaining from the vote on this because I don't feel like I have a complete picture of what the project will be. I do appreciate the developer. I appreciate their energy and their passion and their commitment to our town. But I just need a more thorough look of this project. Thank you.
I have a comment.
Commissioner Braun?
I also am disappointed that we closed the hearing. I think we got a huge amount of information after the hearing was closed, really too much. Certainly any questions we have, we can't get answers anymore. And I think it is not good for the public or for the commission to not be able to vet out information when it comes in. So, some of the points made by Commissioner Harrison, I don't think I've ever seen a code review that was 6 pages long. So many questions and answers, and we didn't have the ability to really check that out or go in depth with it. And then with the town engineer, they had questions. There were answers that did not seem to be answering it. And now we're hearing, oh, that's okay. But I think there's still some items that were not presented that were requested. Like, I don't know, the town engineer said the traffic study is still under review. I don't know that we heard back. I don't think we have. The town engineer also wanted to know where these more details on the hot spots, where the contamination is. And I think that's important. I was involved in both Exide and Metro Center during their long, lengthy, decades-long sagas. And knowing where the contamination is, what it is, and what the proposal is to clean it up is necessary to know if what they're presenting to us even makes sense. So we were, for example, small example, we were given a landscape plan and, beautiful canopy trees. Well, those can't be done. It's premature to even say that because we don't know. There's not even been an application filed with DEP. I don't know why. This has been in the works since last May when we changed our regulations based on their concept review. And then they got the $3 million remediation grant, I think, in August. And they don't like the conditions attached to it, but a lot of months have gone by and nothing has been applied for yet with DEP. So if DEP wants a cap, well, then you can't have trees there. End of story. The roots go through the plastic membrane. And if they don't want a cap, if the whole thing is going to be cleaned up, well, then that changes a lot of metrics about it. I try to go through this after the last meeting, and there's a lot of stuff, that information that I would still like to have. Okay, for example, there's somewhere in the plans they mention an oil plume from an underground oil storage tank from the old industrial site. What is the remediation going to be? What is the source, location, the extent, the characterization of the oil, contamination? What is the remediation activities? What is the exceedance level that they're going to go down to? That's all valid concerns for us as the zoning commission responsible for the health and safety of our community. Also, if you delve into the details, their excavation and fill notes, they propose over 35,000 cubic yards of fill for the site, plus an additional 7,500 cubic yards of contaminated soil to be removed and replaced with clean fill. But I don't see any indication describing what the 7,500 cubic yards is going to remediate. Is it PCBs? Is it something else? The site plans talk about the stormwater infiltration, but I couldn't see where it's going to be provided on the site. Obviously, we need it and it's good to have it, but how does that factor into the contamination of the soil and where they are located? And how will that all work? We don't know, again, what the remediation plan will be. And this is, it's not as big a site as the Fairfield Metro Center, but whenever you have remediation of contaminated soil, that makes it a complex project. They are doing, they're doing the separator to try to get the particles or whatever out of the water before it directly flows into Ash Creek. Okay, that's a good thing too. But again, I would like to have had a little bit more explanation of that. It's also by our town engineer. There's something else. The stormwater line is going along the edge of the building footprint, but that's kind of near also where the Metro Center sanitary and stormwater lines are. And I would like to have had a little bit better explanation about that. Those are some of the concerns and things that I would like to see. And it kind of goes along with what the engineering department wanted. And if the town engineer, I just don't think a half-page email with like 4 bullet points gives us enough from the town engineer. They have these questions. They were basically told, we don't have to give it to you. And I don't think they have given us the detail about the contamination and what the remediation plan will be. And that could change the entire design of this whole project. The town engineer in his reply did say, depending on how the remediation is done, we'll have to have new plans submitted. Well, let's do that now. Why are we waiting? I don't think the developer's rush should be our rush. I know that with both Metro Center and Exide, 2 large contaminated sites, there was no application to TPZ until long after they were cleaned up, satisfactory to be developed. I know with Metro Center, the wetlands permit was going along in the beginning, and then it went up to the state. That became a mess anyway for a variety of reasons. But I think it's premature for us to consider a project like this. And I feel like if there's a way of reopening the hearing, can we invite our town engineer back, or and their licensed environmental professional, and just assure us they must have this information because they must have done their due diligence when they looked at this site. I don't think they've given it to us though, and I don't think they've explained it well enough. So aside from the missing information, that is a great concern. I will not be able to support this. I also feel that I don't like the idea of losing that stand of trees that's right there, because we were told they'd be replaced with large canopy trees, which I don't know if it can be done. So where do we go there? We will lose trees and not replace trees if this is remediated with a cap. So I don't have the answer to that. I feel like we should wait until they apply to DEP or get a whole lot more information from our town engineer, or a combination of their LEP, or doesn't the town have an LEP on retainer for the monopole situation? I mean, could we get somebody to weigh in on this and to look at the test sites to tell us what, where it is, what's the likely way it's going to be remediated? Because it is on the shore of a tidal estuary, and it is in a flood area. So,
Thank you. Commissioner Levy?
Yeah, I appreciate Commissioner Braun's concerns, and I think we're all concerned about environmental impact. But my recollection of the testimony from the applicant was that they were not prepared to go forward with the DEP or the environmental unless they had an approved project. Unlike the Exide and the Metro Center, which were major disasters, there was no developer presenting a proposal because nobody was going to touch it until those areas were cleaned up. Here we do have environmental concerns, which will be fully addressed through DEP. And from my dealings with them on a limited basis, it is a rigorous, time-consuming, expensive process. And they are the ones who have the knowledge and experience and the understanding sufficient to protect the public interest in this area. And if, in fact, the environmental remediation is such that it precludes this development, well, at that point, this developer will be back with any necessary amendments to the special permit. But at this point, we have a private developer. He's got a very well-designed plan. It's a great deal of work has gone into it. They're prepared to go forward with the very expensive DEP process, but I think we got to keep the cart behind the horse, and we need to approve the project, and then the environmental will be fully addressed by the appropriate state agency.
Comment?
Thank you, Commissioner Levy. Does anybody else have comments? I do as well, but anybody new?
Yeah, this is Jeff.
Go ahead, Commissioner Randolph.
I'd like to first of all commend the staff comments. They were very thorough. It looked like a very thoughtful and rigorous review of the project. And I know it's a difficult one and under a lot of scrutiny. This project is, as Commissioner Corsillo said, is what we are trying to encourage and what we need. It's a large-scale project, but it's in a location that can take a large-scale project. The proposed building is approximately the same scale as the building that was there before. So it's a appropriate place to put a large dense housing complex because of the size, the scale, the proximity to the train station, and the unit mix is also what we need. The percentage of affordable housing is going to benefit the town. The design is thoughtful, and the developer is local. I really get the sense they care about doing something that is appropriate to the town and taking a lot of pride in it. Some questions were raised about really the environmental impact. What I heard was that essentially that site needed to be scraped entirely, that all the material needed to be removed and disposed of, and that new fill was required because of the intensive use. I appreciate Commissioner Braun's commitment to maintaining the existing trees, but I think that what's going to be going in there, I've looked at the engineering calculations, and the drainage off that site right now is unregulated, unfiltered, and comes off at a high velocity. Putting a building there will essentially put a filter on any stormwater going forward, so it'll be an environmental plus, as indicated in the staff comments. And then lastly, I appreciate the concern about making sure we do this correctly and we're not creating an issue. This is going to be an institutional grade investment. The underwriters will absolutely require that every measure be done to assure that there are no lingering environmental issues. A project of this size and the underwriting for this will, along with the DEP, will assure that there's no lingering environmental issues. So Commissioner Braun, I appreciate your concern. I share that one, but given the scale of this and the type of investors who will be that we're attracting, I think will assure a positive outcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Randolph. I have some comments, but unless somebody else wanted to speak.
I was just,
Okay.
I had a further
Jeff
comment.
still
Go ahead,
looks like
Commissioner Braun.
he's muted.
What's that?
It's Jeff looks like he's talking still, muted.
Oh, Jeff, are you muted? Do you still? No? Okay.
No, I'm muted. I'm not talking.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No worries. Thank you. Commissioner Braun, and then I'll go.
Yeah, so I don't think I don't think we should consider as a factor the developer's issues with getting an approval and then applying. They have a licensed environmental professional on staff. They must have talked to DEP by now. They know what direction they're going. We just don't know it yet. We have information, but we don't know what they're doing. And I would have liked to have heard that because we don't know. So again, they're talking about a landscaping plan that will fall by the wayside if it's capped. We don't know if it'll be capped or if it will be completely scraped, as Commissioner Randolph mentioned. We don't know that. We don't have the details. It was not presented to us. So it should have been presented to us. And I wish we had kept it open long enough for another hearing so we could have done more Q&A, have our town engineer weigh in more than just bullet points, and maybe even have our town's LEP that we have weigh in as well. I'd feel a whole lot more comfortable. So, you know, the only reason they gave for not, they don't know if they want to use the grant money yet because Department of Labor requirements have to be met. And they would require more affordability. We are only requiring 12% by the regulation we passed at their request. I think it should be higher. That doesn't, you know, that satisfies our regulation. I understand that. But by the way, this will not help our ratio for 8-30G, but that's besides the point. So I just don't think, I don't think it was adequate. I think it's on the shores of Ash Creek, which, you know, Metro Center spent so much time taking care of their site. And this is, I imagine, just as contaminated as that is. And we don't have an answer for exactly what or where the remediation is. So.
All right, I'll jump in. I think more than sufficient information has been presented to this commission. We've had our engineer, we had a long hearing with them. We went back and forth with them. We've had weigh-in from our engineers, and I think they have told us fairly unequivocally that they approve what's being proposed. Now, again, I'll repeat my lovely saying, people maybe want treatises and they get bullet points, but I don't really understand what else is expected of our town engineers or other staff other than we approve, we've reviewed this, we've talked, and we approve it. If I guess other questions are needed after the close of the hearing, we certainly could have asked the more direct questions, I suspect, of our town engineer. And I know that Mr. Wendt provided additional information that I believe was available at the time and was inadvertently maybe left out. I don't remember the exact how it went down with the code minutes, but I believe that was available at the time. It was just inadvertent. And we had time to review them. And we had time to talk to our staff and our town agencies. And I wasn't a part of anything, and certainly requests could have been made, and I don't believe they were made. But I don't think it was needed to be made. Attorney Fallon rightfully said and cited that cited that Supreme Court case. We are not environmentalists, and we're not an environmental agency. I don't think it's proper to take these broad regulation language to protect the health, wealth, and welfare and safety of the town, and then use that to dive into areas that I don't believe that this commission is really should be privy to. It's outside of our scope and outside of our lane. As said, I mean, DEP was going to be involved. Our engineers will be involved with the remediation. And, whether they say they're going to do one way or another way, I don't think, we really have the expertise to weigh in on one way or the other, nor is it really our scope. They presented a special permit application, and there are the 5 standards that were outlined to us by Mr. Wendt, and that's what our consideration should be. And I think trying to extend that into environmental concerns, the detail that has been described thus far is not appropriate. I don't know how else to say it. I'll steal Attorney Fallon's line. I think this is an exciting project. I remember going to the train station and driving by this vacant lot with weeds pulled up and knowing the environmental concerns and thinking, well, that's going to stay there forever. Who's going to touch that? Now we got a great project that meets the criteria from a local builder who's doing it, certainly not rushing through it, seeing as though they had regulation amendments last year and considering all this based on our TOD study as well. So, I think this is a win-win in so many ways, and one of them being environmentally as well, is the site's going to be cleaned up, and as it was Commissioner Randolph said, now the site's going to be cleaner, runoff will be cleaner. To hold this up, I think information that I think we could have gotten in between, whether the meeting was open or closed. I think that's not something I would agree with. As said previously, it meets everything, the elements of the special permit, and I wouldn't think this other than a complete win for the town. We've certainly had more than enough information in this. I think this site and this project has been vetted for probably years by this developer. And should there be a problem with remediation and require a change, they will, as Commissioner Levy rightfully said, they'll come back to us. And he rightfully said, keep the cart behind the horse, because, maybe I don't know how they could anticipate things until they start getting into it. So, everything about this, I think, is a win for Fairfield, a win for this commission. I think we have vetted this. We've given sufficient information, more than sufficient information, to make an informed decision, and I fully support the project. Any further comments, or can we put this to a vote? Current motion is to approve. Let me pull it up. To qualify this as a transit-oriented development park, to approve the special permit, and to approve the coastal site plan application. All those in favor? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I second the motion.
Okay, I think Commissioner Levy beat you to it, but
okay, sorry.
let me ask if all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Aye. Board.
Aye.
Okay, so did I hear 6 then? I'm going to sound them off. Randolph,
Yes.
Levy, Ford, Porcillo, Noonan, and Harrison?
Correct.
Okay. All opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Okay,
Kathy.
thank you. I should have said that. Commissioner Braun, nay. So 6-1, motion passes.
Mr. Chairman,
All
before we move on to the public hearing items, of which there are 4, and I don't want to belabor that, and we need to move along. It did come up in conversation in discussing the invitation earlier this evening, as where are we with the POCD? We should be able to distribute to you by the end of the week a new revised red line draft that takes into consideration a lot of the feedback that we've received thus far. There's still more conversation to be had. So it is our intent to get that out to you. And in speaking with the chair, it's likely that we're going to need to add some extra meetings on the calendar for the purpose of commission discussion of this revised draft, because as it was well stated before, we do have a lot of regular business in it So I think it would merit the addition of some additional meetings for the purpose of commission discussion on the revised draft. So you should have that by the end of the week, with the idea that we'll give you some time to look at that, with the idea of perhaps putting some additional meetings on the calendar beginning in the latter part of March.
We will talk about when the meetings will be. It's probably not going to be next week. And I emphasized the red line. I thank you for the thank you to the staff. I know for whatever reason the initial draft was not able to be redlined in such a way. So thank you for doing that. That's going to make life a lot easier, I think, in reviewing it.
I have a question.
Sure.
Can we get it in both Word and PDF? Like, I know neither of them can be emailed because it's too large, but it'll be posted, I assume.
Yeah, it's just going to be it's going to be too large a file. It's not a Word document. It's going to be a link that we're going to send you. I mean, we can give you a hard copy if you want a hard copy, but it's not going to be a Word document.
But when you redline it, it's in a Word document. It's very hard for me to review something without being able to insert comments because you're not going to print it out. So it would be good if you could make
print it out.
Huh?
We can certainly provide you a hard copy.
No, I don't need a hard copy. I'm just saying PDF is good because that memorializes what you did with the red lines, but Word is good because then when we are reviewing it, we can insert our own questions into the body of the document. So is it possible to do it both ways, the way you did the first time? But when we got the draft from the consultant, they made it available as Word as well as the PDF.
I understand your question. I'm not in a position to be able to answer that one way or the other at this moment.
Okay, thank you.
There are comments in the PDF too, I think, function. You can add that there. I'm not sure, I think, we'll work with it and try and figure it out.
I understand what you're asking, and but I don't have an answer to your question.
No worries, that's fine. But I thought it was worth before we start the public hearing, and
I just wanted to update.
Not doing this at 10 o'clock. It might be worth just giving a quick update. So we'll get the drafts out there. It'll be posted on the website. I don't think anything we're reviewing, I think the public should see. And we'll talk about meetings as well. So thank you for that, Mr. Wentz. I'm going to go to public hearing, but I'm going to call item 2 out of order. The simple reason is I think it will be very quick. And I'd like to get this person in and out. Let me call item 2 in the public hearing, 95 Chester Place, request of asset management consultants on behalf of Walter Buck for a 100% release of a $48,570 bond pertaining to subdivision improvements in an R3 zone. Who is here on behalf of that application?
Jim, is there a name that I should be looking for in the participants?
I'm scrolling through that myself, and I don't see one that leaps to mind. This may be a shorter item than you actually anticipated, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, well, that's fine too. If he wasn't expecting to be called out of turn, and that's fine.
That's okay. They may not be here, but I would go back to the regular order, and we can reach out to them and perhaps schedule them for another day.
That's fine. I tried. I'll say it one more time. Is anybody here for 95? Is the applicant here for 95 Chester Place? Is anybody here from Asset Management Consultants? Trying to do you a favor. Going once. Twice. All right. So I'll go back to where we were. Call 110 Woodrow Avenue zoning compliance application of 22 Long Lots Lane LLC for a 23-unit residential development pursuant to 830G of the Connecticut statutes in the Design Commercial District and Resident B Zone.
Mr. Chairman, can you hear me? This is John Fallon.
I can.
You can.
Attorney
Good.
Fallon, good evening.
Good evening, and members of the commission, good evening. For the record, I'm John Fallon. I'm representing the applicant. By way of background, my recollection is that we basically had completed the public hearing at the last meeting. At that time, Mr. Green, who's here tonight, on behalf of our clients, my client, the applicant, and his clients, the Sasquatch Association for Southport Improvement, and Mr. Elliot Zivin, submitted to you an overall agreement that we had reached after a fair amount of discussion over previous weeks. I won't read that to you. I believe it was made part of the record, but it did contain 7 elements that included primarily the reduction in the scope of the project from 23 to 20 units, the submission of a revised and robust landscaping plan, a commitment that the proposed second driveway would be utilized solely for deliveries and trash and refuse pickup. It would be a limited use driveway, that we would redesign the building to make it less bulky in appearance by redesigning the 3rd floor in a manner agreeable to the parties. We also agreed that we change the color of the building to gray, and that we would pertain to all state and local regulations with regard to blasting. And further, that we would agree that after the expiration of the appeal period, we would pursue with due diligence an application to the police commission of the town seeking to obtain stop signs at Peace Road and Kings Highway West in Woodrow. And that we would work cooperatively with Mr. Green's clients in that regard. And as part of that, and the reason we continued the hearing was we had to submit revised plans, obviously. We had to submit a revised landscaping plan. We had to submit revised architectural plans. We did that and got those documents to Mr. Green approximately 10 days ago. And I'm pleased to report, and I think he will confirm, that our agreement as outlined by you that night and now as confirmed by the revised plans that we have given to him and submitted to this commission has been finalized and confirmed with the Sasquatch Association. And we are very, very pleased and appreciative of that and of their good faith efforts to work with us to come up with something that we can all agree on. I'm disappointed that Mr. Zivin still has concerns apparently about the limited service driveway. And I'm sure he'll address those to you tonight, and then we'll respond accordingly. So what I see us doing here is we've made our presentation to you. We have submitted the revised plans. The hearing is still open, so I would assume that the commission would entertain any final public comments. And once that is done, I'll offer any necessary rebuttal to those comments, and I'll have a brief summary of the proceedings and what I think is the applicable legal underpinnings. So that's where I see us being, if you agree, Mr. Chairman.
So let me ask this, Mr. Wendt, Mr. Fallon, Attorney Fallon. I was under the impression that the public comment had not formally ended at the last hearing.
No, I don't. I don't disagree with that.
Okay, that's fine.
So I think where we go now is there could be further public comment. I expect we'll hear something on behalf.
No, that's fine. I just thought you had said that it had ended. I don't think it changes anything, but I just wanted to be.
No. Once the public comment is over, I'll offer any necessary rebuttal to any comments tonight, and then I have what I hope will be a brief summary of the proceedings.
Okay. So, yes, I think that's a fair. Explanation of where we are and where we will go. I think the first thing is I'll ask the commission if there's any questions of the applicant, Attorney Fallon, or anyone else. If there's questions with this new this new plan, the revised plan at least, and then I will, assuming when we are done with that, I will go to public comments to anybody. If anybody's already spoken, I would ask that it be limited to the revised plan. If anybody hasn't spoken, they can, I think, are somewhat unlimited in that respect as far as talking about what's been discussed so far, though I think the revised plan is going to be the focal point. And then once public comment is over, we go back to rebuttal. So I think that's a fair recitation. Does members of the commission, sorry. Are there any questions from the commission about the revised plans?
I have a question.
Commissioner Braun, go ahead.
Just regarding the design and the aesthetics, the original one you had, while I felt it was too big and too close to the house, I thought it was very attractive because it was white, it looked kind of clapboard. It seems like it's looking a little more industrial now as dark gray with less contour. It's hard to tell without seeing side by side, but can you explain? It just seems less home-like looking or less New England looking.
Aesthetics is always a matter of, the beauty being in the eyes of the beholder.
That is true. That is true.
One, I know a primary focus that you had, Commissioner Braun, was that we would increase that rear setback.
Yes.
The benefit. Well, we did that very substantially. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, I think we actually comply with the underlying zone setback, although this is an 8-30G. So we certainly address that. As far as the change of color, one of the 7 points of agreement that we had with Mr. Green's clients, including Sasquatch, and I quote, was item number 4, the building shall be redesigned. Yes, the building, let me put my glasses on here. Yes, the building, it's number 5. The applicant shall change the color of the exterior of the building to a shade of gray to be agreed to by the client. And that's what we did. And we gave these plans close to 2 weeks ago.
Can you?
And that's why the building's gray. We think it's still very attractive. We thought white was attractive too, but in the spirit of our working and constructive dialogues, especially with Sasquatch, they preferred the gray tone, and that's what we did.
Can you, thank you, I appreciate that. Can you just verbally summarize the differences in the footprint and the setbacks between then and now? I apologize, I can't see anything, so I can only look at your new plan at one at a time. So the back setback was like 1 foot or 3 feet, and now it's 10 feet. Is that it between you and the back neighbor?
That's one.
John,
yes.
John, do you want me to address that?
I do. I was just going to introduce our architect, Mr. Jim
Thanks. Sure. Yeah.
And so Jim will walk you through that. Thank you, Jim.
Yeah, I mean,
Great.
previously the building was only 3.5 feet from the rear yard setback. The actual zoning regulations say that we would need 10 feet, and we are now 10.5 feet. So we are fully compliant with that setback in regard to the reconfiguration of the building. So we have actually reduced the size of the building by that 7 feet times the whole width of the building. So we have reduced the scale of the structure substantially.
And then on the other side, there's no change in setback on the other sides, mostly on the back. That was the area of concern.
Right. We pulled the back forward, but the other setbacks remain the same. On the right-hand side, that complies with the current regulations.
Mm-hmm. And are you going to go through your whole spiel now, or can I keep asking questions? What makes more sense?
Go ahead.
I have some more questions. Okay. Are the two driveways changing? They look a little different. Is the front of the building changing in its footprint?
No,
it seems to look a little different to me.
The driveways are identical. They're off of Pease Avenue. There's a two-way driveway into the parking under the building. The drive on the right is purely for deliveries and also for picking up the refuse dumpsters. There are no cars that will be going onto the right side of the building. So that's purely an infrequent driveway, which is just for service only. So all the cars will be coming out of the driveway on the lower left side going into Pease Avenue.
And it might not be for you, but last time there was some question about whether it be blasting or just drilling the whole back, which is like a large ledge that sticks up pretty steep. That still has to come down, even though you're staying 10 feet away from the neighbor, right? You still have to level it off, I guess, but there's still going to be some kind of a slope because you were saying part of the parking garage will be below grade as it moves towards the back.
That's correct, and we anticipate being able to deal with the any ledge that we find with chipping, not blasting, which is a
And
common
does
way
that
to deal
mean,
with it.
yeah,
So it's much less intrusive than sticking dynamite into the ground.
and does that also, I'm just trying to picture side by side with the house that's uphill. Obviously the roof is flat. I mean, but so so the front of the building is taller above grade than the back of the building. I'm probably not saying it the right way.
That's correct, because Pease Avenue slopes up
Yeah.
and basically
yeah.
eliminates an entire story by the time we get to the back of the site. So it reduces
much
the
will
whole
this-
scale of the building
yeah.
by a story.
Do you know, because it's hard to see without seeing side by side, is it possible to know how high this would be in relation to the house that's uphill next to it? I know that a house uphill has a driveway between the house and the property line. So it's probably, the house is probably 20 or more feet away from this building. But is there enough to put screening there to the height of the building so it's not so obvious? Like you can now put taller screening because you have 10.5 feet, right?
Right. I would say we can put screening in there and it would have to grow. But the abutting house is probably not as tall as you would be allowed to build in that zone anyway, because it's been there for quite a while.
Mm-hmm. And then one last question, which might be more for the traffic person. During public comment I don't remember if this was addressed, during public comment, one of the neighbors came in with, I think, 100 pages of traffic accidents. Do we know if those are all on the Post Road or some of those are on Pease Avenue, and why they didn't show up in the records that were in the traffic report? That might be for the traffic person.
He's here. Mr. Cipolla is here, and I will ask him to address that.
Okay.
I just point out that those reams of paper that, as I recollect, were submitted at the hearing went all the way back. I can't remember, was it 2015 or something? But rather than me speculating, Mr. Steve Cipolla of Hardesty Hanover is here. And could you just address that question that Commissioner Braun raised, Steve?
Yes, good evening. For the record, Steve Cipolla with Hardesty in Hanover, Senior Traffic Engineer. We looked at the resident stated that in one of his previous statements that there were 7 accidents between 2020 and 2023 on Pease Avenue. As stated in our traffic evaluation, we looked at for 2020 through 2022 because at the time of our study, 2023 data was not fully available. And we looked at the intersection of Pease at Woodrow, Pease at the off-ramp, and the section between the 2 intersections, which is along the site frontage. We did a search to determine the 7 accidents that were referenced from the Connecticut Crash Data Repository. And 6 of the accidents were between the Post Road and Woodrow on Pease, and a 7th one was on Pease Avenue on the north, where it turns 90 degrees and goes northbound, southbound. Also, 4 out of the 7 were in 2023, so it was outside of our time, and it was not available at the time of our study, those accidents. But all of those accidents did not fall within our identified study area limits.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
I've one last question, if you don't mind. And I apologize if I asked this last time or if it was answered. I don't have access to my notes. So there was a question raised by our chairman at one of the hearings that when you did your sightline speed study, how do you account for the fact that that's a very interesting stretch from the exit ramp to a stop sign and then going down to the light at the Post Road? And this is sort of like halfway down from the stop sign to the light on the post road. How do you account or explain that the speed study could be accurate if sometimes people are probably speeding up to make the light, but other times people might be stuck waiting in a line of traffic at the light? How does that get handled in your speed study? Because if you're underestimating it, I think you came up with 24. If you're underestimating the average, well, then it could be you need more sightline. And I think, did you say you only have the exact right amount of sightline, of distance per sightline?
Happy to have Mr. Cipolla answer that. It was,
Great.
I think it was a while ago, but it was addressed at the last hearing as a result of the question
Okay.
that was asked by the chair, but no problem whatsoever. Mr. Cipolla, could you review again the sightline calculation and 85 percentile speed determination under the circumstances of the road as Commissioner Braun describes it?
Yes, our speed study was conducted for a 7-day period and follows the industry standard as well as the standard that has been required by the town on other projects. The speed study was also reviewed by the town engineer as part of his review of the sightlines, and he approved the methodologies of the calculation of the sightlines.
But what was your explanation though? Because, and I know you answered it, and I just can't recollect it though, where the speeds in the morning, where you have them kind of lined up with the lights, so they're not moving. How was that addressed in the average speed? Was that factored in or not factored in? Because you could be going down and maybe not off the highway, but it was off of the other road, taking a turn that's going a little faster. So I just forget how you'd said it, but I think it's worth repeating.
Yes, I think I believe I said at the meeting, it's not the average speed, it's the 85th percentile speed. So
Fair.
it's taken the 85% of the people travel under that speed, and it's a study over 7 days, so it's a big sample of data, and that's been requested by the town, not for us to look at a small data sample. They want us to look at a 7-day stretch of data.
And are you saying, Mr.
But I also think you said something along the lines of, I think even if you took out the morning stuff where they're going slow, what was it still didn't show like even if you went higher than 85, it wasn't too much higher than what you had for the 85th percentile anyways. Or did you show, or was it also though that in looking at the raw data, the maximum speeds were only what, low 30s at best?
Yes, I believe if I remember from the last meeting when we looked at the data that the max speeds generally were in the low 30s. So that's why we were seeing, the 85th percentile was generally it was at the 24, based on that the maximum speeds really weren't showing a significantly higher than what we were finding in the 85th percentile.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any Commissioner Harrison, go ahead.
Sure. I mean, we have I'm not sure, maybe I missed it in the file that Mr. Wentz sent us. Do we have a breakdown of what the percentages of the affordability is relative, I guess, to the apartments, to the 1 bedrooms versus the 2 bedrooms?
Yeah, well, what we have now is with the agreed to changes that we have made, and that is reducing the project from 23 units to 20 units. Obviously, the affordable number of units will be 6. That's 30% of the 20. With regard to the current configuration that we are going to have, we're going to have 8 1-bedroom and 12 2-bedroom units. So we'll make sure that those units are properly proportioned so that the 6 units will have doing the math quickly, a higher concentration, I would think you probably, to be consistent with the breakdown of the units generally, I think you'd probably do 4 two-bedrooms and 2 one-bedrooms. And then we allocate properly between the 60 and 80% AMI. So we're getting 6 affordable units here now. And based upon the breakdown of the number of units, I would see those units being 2 of them being 1-bedroom and 4 of them being 2-bedroom.
Okay. Can we get that? Maybe you did this already, and so forgive me. Can we get this in writing, or is this in the agreement?
Well, what you
Where can
have
I?
now is you have in the record my affordability plan that was submitted.
Yep, saw that.
But
Yep.
but that will have to be slightly revised because that is based upon 23 units. But I'll certainly submit to Mr. Wendt, should you approve the application, as we hope you will, a revised affordability plan that will change the math so that it will show 6 affordable units and the breakdown that I just discussed.
No, I
We
appreciate
should probably
it.
have
Is there a
that as
reason?
a,
I'm
we
sorry.
should
Is there a
probably have
reason why
that
we
as
don't
a,
have that tonight? Like,
I'm
I would like to see that tonight if we're going to be voting on this tonight.
Well, I
we're
don't
not
know that
voting
you'd
for
be
tonight.
voting on it tonight, but
Oh, we're not? Okay.
I would hope.
No,
that
we
you-
should probably make, if I may, we probably will make that a recommendation. No, a condition
Sorry,
of
you're right, we're not
approval. That's okay.
Okay.
We'll probably make that a condition of approval with the updated affordability plan, which I can't imagine you'd have a problem with, Attorney Fallon, but
Not at all. And
Yeah.
Commissioner Harrison, it won't
Need
be a significant change from the affordability plan that's in your record now, because it's just math. We're going from 23 units to 20 units, which reduces the affordable number from 7 to 6.
Got it. Okay. All right. Thank you. That's helpful.
Thank you.
any other members of the commission? I can only see a few people, so please speak up if you do, or okay, last chance, not hearing anything, which is fine. Obviously, we'll listen to public comments and then have rebuttal should anything else come up in the meantime. Anything further, Attorney Fallon?
Not at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So that will end at least the, well, it'll end the applicant's presentation of its revised plan in accordance with its talks and negotiations with neighbors. I will open this up to public comment. Any member of the public, please identify yourself. Please put your name in chat if possible, so we can keep a track of who would like to speak on it. If you can just give your name and your address and keep your comments germane to the application. I would think probably the revised plan at this point, since that's what we're going on, but is there any member of the public that wishes to be heard? Do you have anybody, Ms. Harrigan? I don't think I saw anybody in chat, but
I didn't have anybody sign up for this item as of yet. Oh, Attorney.
I see Attorney Green, yeah. Attorney Green, do you want to speak now, or do you want me to see if any member of the public wishes to be heard?
I'll happily defer if someone else wants to speak from the public.
Okay. I
Whatever
haven't
the
heard
chair-
anybody yet, but let me just see if Ms. Harrigan, did anybody sign up in the chat? I missed your response. Sorry.
No, nobody did for this item. We have speakers for another item.
No, I saw them come in. Yeah, as I was focused on the conversation. If any member of the public wishes to be heard on this application, which is again 110 Woodrow Avenue, please identify yourself. If you are calling in, please press *6 to unmute yourself. Any member of the public wish to be heard?
I don't see
Attorney
it.
Green, I think you're up. Oh, so go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, staff. My name is Joel Green. I practice law in Bridgeport with the offices of Green and Gross, and it's my pleasure to once again appear before you this evening on behalf of the Sasquatch Association and Elliot Zivin The Sasquatch Association for over 100 years has pursued its mission of preserving the historic character, landscape, and environment of Southport, and has advocated on behalf of that community on countless issues. And I also appear once again on behalf of Mr. Zibin, who resides in Southport Woods, the condominium association in the neighborhood. So as Attorney Fallon indicated, over the past 8 weeks, we've met, we've had a very productive dialogue, and we've made meaningful progress in addressing the many concerns that had been expressed by members of Sasquatch and others in the community, and by Mr. Zibin. We had presented the statement to the commission, which I note is in the record, and we appreciate the efforts of the applicant in complying with the agreement, and Attorney Fallon is correct that the applicant has committed and has performed the revisions to the plan, which appear in the record. And I think Attorney Fallon reviewed the 7 points. And on that basis, Sasquatch, under the circumstances, first of all, wanted me to indicate that they appreciate, the association appreciates the efforts of the applicant. They appreciate the concessions that the applicant has made, as reflected in the revised drawings, and they represent real compromise. And based upon the revisions, and once again emphasizing the robust landscaping plan that shall be created and maintained in perpetuity, and based upon the representation of the applicant, that the applicant will use reasonable efforts to apply to the police commission to install stop signs at the intersection of Peace Avenue and Woodrow Avenue and Kings Highway West and Woodrow Avenue. Sasquatch is going to withdraw its opposition to the proposed development at this time. Now, Mr. Zibin continues to have concerns regarding the safety of the proposed development, and I will be reviewing those, and they relate to really specifically items relating to ingress and egress from the proposed development and pedestrian safety. And this is not to say that Sasquatch is not concerned with those matters, but Sasquatch is involved with a number of issues at the present time, and as you may be aware, was really on the forefront with the UI situation, and picking its battles and where it's going to dedicate its resources, has elected to withdraw its opposition. But once again, that is not to minimize its concern with safety issues, including safety issues presented by this application.
But Attorney Green, I just want to be clear, because I'm not sure if I fully appreciated, I guess, well, the two clients that you have. Say Sasquatch, did I say it right? Sasquatch, excuse me, is only pulling back its opposition. It is not taking any other position on this application. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
And the only thing, and I don't mean to interrupt Mr. Green, but I want to make sure I'm not getting backdoored here, to be very candid about it. His client, Mr. Zibin, has concerns, and he will address those concerns. I take umbrage respectfully at the last remarks made by Mr. Green, because I spoke to him as late as this afternoon. And I think it should be unequivocally clear, based upon the time and effort that my client has made, that Sasquatch is unequivocally withdrawing their objection to the application. And to the extent that there was some implicit attempt to provide cover to Mr. Zibin, saying, well, Sasquatch has these same concerns, I resent that. And I don't think that's very much in keeping with the good faith negotiations that we've had Sasquatch and this applicant have come to an agreement. The agreement was stipulated to 2 weeks ago before you. My client spent a considerable amount of money to revise these plans. Sasquatch had these plans. Mr. Green has indicated to me, and he has indicated to you publicly, that based upon that effort and what my client has done, Sasquatch is determining to withdraw their objection to this application. That should not be with any reservations about safety, and that should not be because they're choosing battles to fight. And I just want to make that very clear, and I'd ask Mr. Green to make that clear as well.
Yeah, well, that's fine. And I meant no offense to Attorney Fallon, but he should understand that Sasquatch is always concerned, as we all are, with public health and safety. So I only made that comment.
Listen, I'll jump in and say this. When I heard, that's why I wanted to make clear what was going on.
Sure.
When I heard what was said, I heard an unequivocal withdrawal of opposition, which I think is what was expected. No further position is being taken other than the unequivocal withdrawal. It's just that, okay. It's just that, they're, I'll say compatriot in arms for lack of, the ally or whatever, has other safety concerns. They're not taking a position on them, but are, like everybody else, concerned about safety in general. Is that a fair statement?
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you for.
Attorney Fallon, is that a fair statement?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I think that's worth repeating. So that's fine. Attorney Green, go ahead.
So, and just so put everything in context, Mr. Zivin's concerns are within the bounds of the agreement that we had forged with the applicant. It's specifically, I would call the commission's attention to the third component of the agreement, which was that the use of the proposed second driveway along the eastern boundary of the property shall be restricted at all times for use for deliveries and trash and refuse pickup only. And here is the significant point. The consulting engineer for the applicant shall provide a scale drawing demonstrating that the driveway SSD, that's the safe stopping distance, is satisfied such that the driveway provides safe access for delivery vehicles using it. So where we go is Mr. Zivin, SSD refers to safe stopping distance. However, the concern that Mr. Zivin has relates to the sightline component of the second driveway and the sort of safety concerns that spring from that. And to put that in context, may I screen share?
Sure. Ms. Harrigan, if you can get that to him, please.
He's not restricted. You can go ahead.
Go ahead, Attorney Green.
Thank you. Well, bear with me for one moment. So hopefully you can see the overhead view that I am showing. And this was submitted to the commission earlier. So this is the overhead view of the site. And I'm sure that the commission has reviewed the site plans. And as you can see, what I will call the eastern boundary of the property is located right against the property at 13 Peace Avenue. You may be familiar with that. Right now, Hair of the Dog operates in that space. It was previously Coromandel, an Indian restaurant, occupied the rest of the space. And the property line, the building that is occupied by Hair of the Dog, sits literally directly on the property line. It is the property line. The pursuant to the application, and hopefully the screen, has the screen changed?
Now it has for me.
So you can see that the layout of the ground floor of the building in that space, in this corner, if you can see my cursor, is actually the building that is directly on the property line. Here, there is a driveway proposed that accesses the site. Now, pursuant to the agreement of the parties, this is going to be used for deliveries and trash and refuse only. And the applicant seems to be minimizing that. But I think that as the commission will recognize, first of all, based on the design of the building, the access into the building is here, and you'll see covered entry that is open to this driveway. And in our economy now, obviously deliveries have, and through COVID and continuing after COVID, become increasingly a significant part of everyone's daily routine. And that includes, besides the expected trash pickup twice a week, Attorney Fallon has indicated, you have mail delivery, USPS, sometimes several times a day with packages. You have UPS, you have FedEx, you have Amazon, you have Uber Lyft, you have food delivery of every kind, dry cleaning delivery, florist deliveries, pharmacy deliveries, and the list goes on. And everywhere you go, you see packages on people's front porches in Fairfield. But as you can imagine, a building with 20 units will have a robust delivery business at all times, every day of the week. And delivery is now a 7-day phenomenon, and from early in the morning till late into the evening, 7 days a week. The applicant concedes that 7,400 cars pass on Peace Avenue every day. The overwhelming majority of those cars are coming off of exit 19 southbound and heading west on Peace Avenue in front of the site. And the use of this, as you'll hear tonight, we'll be producing expert testimony on this. The use of this driveway directly on the property line presents challenges, and the applicant has been unable to demonstrate that there is a safe sight line for trucks leaving the site. And I have actually submitted the state highway design manual into the record because we will be referencing that this evening. And I just thought that it would be helpful to have the highway design manual in the record. The highway design manual does describe the standard for safe sight lines for intersections, including driveways such as this. And the fact of the matter is that this driveway does not meet the standards set forth in the highway design manual. With me tonight is Michael Monteleone. Mr. Zibin is here as well and may address the commission. But for the moment, I would like to introduce Michael Monteleone. And maybe he can check in. Are you there?
I'm here.
Attorney Green, quick question for you, Attorney Green. This this driveway with that's now for delivery, I think that driveway was on the initial application. It may not have been limited to deliveries and refuge, but that driveway was initially on the application, correct?
It was on the application, but the applicant had endeavored to demonstrate that it would provide safe ingress and egress. And that was an essential point that Mr. Zibin had been raising from the beginning.
Okay. I mean, we'll keep moving on, but I was under the impression, and I just don't have everything in front of me because we're doing this remotely. I had thought that our engineer had reviewed the sight lines for the driveways and had signed off on them, but you're saying that not for this particular driveway.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, just one moment, going back to screen sharing. And let me just The point is that in the drawings, the applicant had in fact demonstrated that the sightline was safe from the primary driveway only. And the applicant never produced a sightline drawing with respect to the secondary driveway.
Okay.
So the point.
Well, let's go off of that for. Let's go off of that for now. Attorney Fallon can. I assume we'll address it in rebuttal, but let's move on to your Mr. Monteleone.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Mr. Monteleone, are you?
I'm ready to go. You're going to start the presentation?
Sure.
Okay.
I can't see you at the moment.
Oh, sorry. See me now?
I mean, I see your block. I hear you, but I only see black for your camera.
Oh.
Do you have a
Turned it
flap on
on.
your camera? Do you have a flap on your
No.
camera? Okay.
No. It says that it's on.
I can hear you perfectly. So if Attorney Green is screen sharing or you're screen sharing, whomever, I mean, feel free to move forward.
That's strange. Never had this happen before.
All right.
Okay. I'm Michael Monteleone.
Mr. Monteleone, can you briefly describe your education, training, and experience? I note that your resume is in the record, but just briefly for the benefit of the public.
Sure. I'm a senior vice president at Simcoe Engineering at 104 West 40th Street, Suite 433, New York, New York. I have a master's degree in city and regional planning from the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and I've been performing transportation planning and traffic engineering studies for 36 years.
All right. And what were you tasked to do with respect to the proposed development at 110 Woodrow Avenue?
So to review the functionality of the second driveway that's being proposed, to review the site plan in general, and an overall review of pedestrian access to the site.
And can you discuss your findings with respect to the second driveway as to whether it, first of all, what did you do in terms of reviewing the second driveway in terms of its providing safe ingress and egress?
So what we did is a couple of things. Number one is we wanted to look at the site triangle from the driveway, 15 feet from the roadway, as a vehicle would enter, would exit the driveway. And what we found is that the distance was appropriate. However, that sight line crosses over the adjacent property that the applicant does not control, and that causes a few things to be problematic. Number one, another 830G project with no setbacks could be built adjacent and would block the view of vehicles leaving. It would interrupt the sight line. Shrubberies or trees could be planted by the adjacent landowner, which would also obscure the view of exiting vehicles. Or permanent or temporary structures could be built by the adjacent landowner that would also block the view of exiting vehicles.
Do you have a presentation or something that I think you were supposed to be sharing with us, or is this? There we go. Just so we can, I assume what you're saying can be seen on.
Yeah.
There you go.
Could you zoom in a little bit?
Just a moment.
Sorry.
Thank you, Attorney Green.
I can zoom in, yes.
this is a layout of the applicant's property, which is white, and the adjacent property, which is gray. So you can see that the site triangle out to the I-95 exit ramp goes across the adjacent property owner's property. And for the reasons that I just mentioned, since the applicant doesn't control this property, the adjacent landowner could do a number of things, redevelop the property and add in other items that could block the view of the vehicles that exit the driveway, the second driveway.
So
the other thing that, okay.
Go ahead,
Sorry,
Attorney.
Attorney Green.
And for example, cars could be parked in the spaces that are actually on the property at 13 Peace Avenue. Is that correct?
Right. Yes.
And
The difference here is that under the state code, vehicles that are on the street don't count in terms of obstructing the view, but vehicles that are on the adjacent property do, because they're not on the public right of way.
And as you indicated, the applicant has no control over the property at 13 Peace Avenue, correct?
That is correct. That is correct. So currently there is proper site distance, but it could be blocked in a number of different ways based on any action of that landowner. And the thing is that particular piece of property looks like it is in a state of bad repair and could be redeveloped. I would say that would be a target for developers to redevelop. So it's well within the realm of possibility that something else could be built there that could obstruct the view.
Okay.
The building is the gray.
That's correct. Yes. Yes.
Is the building in the way, or is it just the parking?
Okay, so it's really close, and the problem is that I can't say definitively because we were not given the CAD files from the applicant to be able to do that. We had to do this based off of aerial photography and then superimposing their PDF on top of the the aerial photography. So you could be off by a couple of feet one way or the other. So there is a plus or a minus of a couple of feet here because we don't have their CAD files, and that's something that the applicant.
Okay. Why? Hold on. Go back to where you were. Why are you back 15 feet?
That's what the state requires from the roadway.
Can you just cite that? Because I know I've seen it where it goes back a certain amount, but I thought it was like 3, 4, 5 feet. 15 feet back. It just strikes me as not what I. Sure, go ahead. Anybody.
Mr. Chairman, I think I could. I've submitted the State Highway Design Manual into the record, and I can show the chairman the diagram that's in the State Highway Design Manual for sightlines.
Please, or you or your expert. I don't care who. I'm like I said. As I said, I'm surprised that it's 15 feet back when it looks like if you went up.
This is a page. This is in the record. It is a page from the State Highway Design Manual. Can you see these diagrams?
I can, yes.
And this is a diagram, and I can. The state manual provides that and Mr. I'll paraphrase the State Highway Design Manual, and Mr. Monteleone, you can indicate if I'm correct, but basically the way sight lines are measured in Connecticut is it is 15 feet, and depending on the capacity of the road or the characterization of the road as a major road, it can either be measured from the edge of the right-of-way, and you'll see this asterisk right here. So desirably, it's measured from the edge of the road. However, it can be measured from the edge of the traveled way, where restriction limits the offset. So basically, the measure is 15 feet from the edge of the traveled way at a height of 3 feet. And it's the distance that you can see from that point that provides a safe sight distance. Mr.
I also want to
Monteleone,
add that the applicant's own study from the main driveway uses this 15-foot setback as well.
Okay.
Well, let me start with this, Mr. Montiel. Would Attorney Green said accurate? Let's start there.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this though, and if the applicant used 15 feet, so be it. What I'm seeing on this diagram though looks to be roadways, intersections. This is and obviously this is coming out of a driveway. Is
Right.
this okay? So is that not a distinguishment?
Later on in the verbiage, it mentions that driveways and roadways are viewed the same.
Okay.
But doesn't it say at the bottom, desirability measured from the edge of the road, however, can be measured from the edge of traveled way when the restrictions limit offset?
Correct.
Doesn't that indicate that it can be from the edge of the travel portion and not 15 feet back, if necessary?
Correct. And in this case, the applicant measured from the edge of the traveled way.
Wait a minute.
Here is the, this illustrates, yeah, as you can see, this shows the boundary lines of the property and another significant, so this is what the applicant shows as the property line. Significantly, the applicant shows that the property line of 13 Peace Avenue actually projects further towards the road than the boundary line of 110 Woodrow Avenue.
But to Attorney Levy's point, I mean, even if they gave me or us, 15 feet on the main driveway to be conservative, or because there was no obstructions, his point though is that if there is an obstruction, so you have a less than ideal circumstance, you can go to the edge of the road.
The applicant measured from the edge of the road, not from the property line. And the edge of the road versus the edge of the right of way is those are.
Can you go back to where you were with that? I want to see that language again.
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
So one is the edge of the actual highway right of way, but a more liberal approach, because as you're aware, like roads frequently have a 10-foot boundary, a 10-foot snow shelf area. And so the paved area is not generally the edge of the right of way. So a more liberal approach is where you measure from the edge of the road as opposed to the edge of the right of way.
Well, listen, I mean, right of way isn't said in that asterisk. It's saying desired is the edge of the road. Doesn't say anything about 15 feet back there. However, it can be from the edge to the travel way where restrictions limit offset.
Well,
so why don't we, let me start with this. Go to Mr. Monteleone. Not that I don't think you know the answer, Attorney Green, but just because if you have an expert, I might as well ask him. Can you go back to the site plan, your site plan, and show me where you would have the edge of the road and then the edge of the traveled way?
Okay. So our 15 feet goes to the edge of the roadway.
Where's the edge of the roadway?
So
Not
it's
15
at the
feet.
bottom of that hook. Yeah, 15 feet from.
The point though,
correct.
The bottom of that small little hook, the 15 feet, the bottom of it that's on the road, that point is the edge of the roadway, right?
Yes.
Okay. What's the edge of the travel way?
I think
As best,
they
I mean,
could
you may
be,
not be able to, as best you can. I mean,
um,
this is probably better. Yeah, I think good job, Attorney Green.
yeah, so
Where's the edge of the roadway here?
This is
the edge of the
road.
roadway is there where it's pointing.
Okay, so Attorney Green's doing the cursor, but Mr. Monteleone is saying that that's the edge of the roadway. Fine. That's where
Correct.
the curb is essentially.
Right.
Where's the edge of the
Well,
travel way?
there is no curb, but that's where the pavement begins and
Fine.
ends.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Fine.
May I just jump in?
Where's the edge of the travel way?
The edge of the road is the property line. The edge of the travel way is where the pavement is. This is the edge of the pavement of the road. This is the edge of the road itself. So this is called the road or the right of way, but the
Right of way.
is here. So the road boundary is concurrent with is common to the property line.
Fair.
And the paved portion of the road is here.
Okay. Now the bottom of that hook we were talking about went to the edge of the road.
Yes.
Okay. So
Yes.
it's the one that's closer in the property because as Attorney Green said, it may not be where the concrete is and people drive on the cars, but that's where the edge of the road is what you're saying, Attorney Green and Mr. Monteleone.
No, the 15 feet goes from the edge of where the pavement is. That's where we measured it from.
Okay.
That's to the benefit of the applicant.
Right.
That's fine.
So
okay.
Yeah, we went to the edge of the pavement because in a case like this where you don't have curbs and sidewalks and other things within the public right of way, it's a little bit of a blurred image, so to speak. So,
okay. And can you go back
those
to
types of things, the edge of the right of way you can't see because there's nothing there that shows where that is when you're out in the field.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you go back to the language again? The code language.
It's desirably measured from the edge of the road, but liberally,
which is farther back. I get that, but however, it can be measured from the edge of the traveled way. But where's the asterisk go to then?
The
15
is
feet
right here.
Okay. All right. So you went to the traveled edge of the road. You went to the edge of the travel way, but you still have to apply the 15 feet, is what you're saying.
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
You can
and
see,
even though
you
these
can
are
see here, Mr. Chairman, that the edge of the road is shown on this diagram, but here they're measuring the 15 feet from further in, which is presumably the edge of the pavement.
all right. And okay. And you're telling me though that later in the code, even though this looks to be an intersection of roadways, that this is what's done for residential driveways.
Here is the following will apply. It's controlling at all signalized and unsignalized intersections. ISD from all drives to a single family residential development unit should meet full ISD. Commercial drives and multi-residential drives shall meet the same ISD standards as street intersections.
Okay. All right.
So, Mr. Monteleone, can you then just again review the impact of that on public health and safety in terms of how vehicles can enter and exit the site?
Sure. So in terms of the site distance, the vehicle may not be able to see the full distance needed if, in fact, the adjacent property owner makes some type of change to their property that would impede the sight distance of said vehicle leaving the property in the second driveway. So there's no guarantee that that could be preserved in perpetuity because of the fact that changes within whatever legal limits there are could be made to that property to block the view.
Joel, can you show some of the other diagrams, please?
Yeah, we're getting to that. That was
Commissioner Randolph, if you have a question, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, I'm looking at Z1. It's page 108 of 141 in the I think it's the 110 Woodrow Avenue master. And this area is designated as a loading dock.
Can we
Correct?
I can't bring that up on the screen. Can Emmeline, are you able to bring
share
that
it?
up?
I got it right here. Should I try to share?
Sure, you could.
Okay, let's see here. I think this is it. Are you seeing that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So this area. I'm sorry. I'll ask Mr. Fallon or someone from the applicant.
We'll get to them. It's the
I'm sorry.
it's Attorney Greenway.
Is this not a infrequently used loading dock for trash removal primarily, and not a driveway? And Mr. Monteleone, is there a separate specification for a loading dock rather than a driveway? I know in other parts of the drawing, it's labeled as a driveway, but this, from common sense, looks like it's a loading dock to me, where the dump truck would, basically pull in. And
So when we reviewed this, I was going to get into my presentation, but I can bring it up now since it's relevant. So if this was only going to be used for trash twice a week, that's a different conversation. The problem we have is, as Attorney Green mentioned, there's no other place for deliveries and drop-offs and pickups of passengers and all of those activities to occur on the site. The site's not large enough to allow that to occur. And secondly, Peace Avenue westbound is not wide enough to accommodate people parking on the street and also allowing traffic to drive in the lane. If that were the case, since it's only about 14 or 15 feet, variable, an 8-foot wide vehicle or the silhouette of an 8-foot wide vehicle would allow only 7 feet or 6 feet for the travelway, which means it wouldn't be wide enough for another car to pass by, and they have to go into the other lane of traffic to get around them. So there's not an alternative to those vehicles having to go into that second driveway. And also, the main access to outsiders into the site is from that driveway. That's where you go in and out of the building. If you're a delivery person, if you're a visitor, anybody in that ilk would have to use that second driveway, the sidewalk along the second driveway, and the second driveway if you're picking up and dropping off people or merchandise or whatever, you'd have to use that second driveway. And as Attorney Green mentioned, since the pandemic, these activities have gone up infinitely with, in terms of their use and their occurrence in residential locations. As he mentioned, there's packages on everybody's doorstep, every day. So there would be a good amount of activity in this driveway. It wouldn't be a sleepy little trash compactor pickup twice a week. This would include vehicles coming in at least an hour, if not more, every day, 7 days a week. It would be a beehive of activity. It wouldn't be a inconsequential number of vehicles coming in and out.
What's your understanding of this hatched area right here?
That hatched area is for the handicapped vehicles. They have room for wheelchairs and lifts to be able to load a handicapped person in and out of a vehicle.
So this would not serve as an access point to the lobby? Is that what you're suggesting?
Well, it could from the people who live there who have an assigned parking space, but it wouldn't help somebody from the outside who is visiting or who is dropping off food or is an Uber who's picking up people.
Joel,
Because how would
can
they
you
turn
please
around?
share some of the other drawings?
Well, I don't know if there are more questions at this moment before we move on.
So just one clarification point. So if this were restricted to a trash disposal, which appears to be its intended use, the sightline restrictions that you suggested would not apply. Is that correct?
If it was only for trash pickup and trash
Go ahead.
drop-off,
Yep.
then it wouldn't present.
problem.
Obviously, the volume of use would be considerably less. And that
Right.
would be
And so the main concern is the our Uber pickups, drop-offs, and the
Amazon, UPS, USPS, Uber.
delivery trucks. Yeah. The delivery trucks.
So here's my concern is that it's certainly people's habit to drive into a driveway, not back into it. Most people would drive into a driveway, correct? Is that I think that's a pretty fair assumption. So then by inference, you'd have to back out of the driveway to get back onto the traveled way. So you have Uber Eats people, you have Uber drivers who are looking to get on their next fare, their next drop off. They have to make their deliveries within a certain amount of time. These people are going to be backing out quickly and may not be paying attention to the over 7,600 vehicles that are coming off I-95. So
I think-
that's our concern. And when you're backing out of the driveway, you know, it's hard to see from where you're sitting in the front left of the vehicle, vehicles coming from the right. It's a very difficult thing to see them until they're right on top of you.
Certainly poses a risk. So backing out of that poses a risk.
That's exactly our point. And especially because it's infrequent people. If it was the same people who live there every day, then maybe you could have them back in or do something different. But you have a different Uber driver, a different Uber Eats driver every other week, every other day, every other time of the day. They're not gonna know to do that. All they're looking to do is get that delivery done quickly and get on to the next one because that's how they make their money.
All right. I think you've addressed the point well enough. Unless there's anything additional you want to add. The only reason I say, and I'll put this out there since the time is I understand this application with the timing. All extensions have been possibly given, and we need to finish this hearing tonight and have a vote next meeting, which is not to say we should just be done and not vet this as we are. But I want everybody to understand the timing with respect to this hearing. All the extensions have been given as far as statutory timeframes. We need to finish this hearing tonight. We need to vote on it next time. Again, it's not to say we should finish right now, but I think everybody should know that considering the time. It's 9:25. So
Can I just make two more quick points?
Please, go ahead.
Yeah, very quickly. So just we submitted to you auto turn analysis of a 25-foot delivery vehicle going in and out of the vehicle, in and out of the driveway, either backing in or backing out. So you'll be able to see that. And when a vehicle backs out and it wants to go towards the post road, they have to go across the other direction of traffic to be able to go westbound. I just want to point that out. And that was a test vehicle that we used, a 25-foot delivery vehicle. So you can see that we've
Well,
presented
Mr.
these.
Montaglione and Attorney Green, I didn't say what I said to shortcut what you guys your presentation. I just want to put that, I just think if
Yeah,
you've
sure.
made your point on the volume on the delivery, so I just want to put that out
Oh,
there. So
okay.
please continue with whatever you're doing.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I misread what you were saying. Okay.
No, that's okay.
Yeah. So
Can you repeat what he just said?
Can you repeat
I
what you
didn't hear
said,
what he
please,
just-
about the?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Sorry. So we did 3 different scenarios with our auto turn analysis with the 25-foot delivery vehicle. So we did a westbound back in, an eastbound back in, and a back out. So as you can see by the graphic, the vehicle needs to go past the driveway, the second driveway, stop, and then back in. So depending on how careful the person stops to let the people behind him know that, or her know that they're gonna make a backwards move, which most people who are driving won't expect. So this is an odd type of movement on a street that connects a major regional highway with a major state road. So and also with 7,600 daily vehicles coming through here. So we're concerned that an abrupt stop by one of these vehicles and then a sudden backup could create some type of chain reaction crashes that the vehicle who's driving may not see or may not fully comprehend until it happens, and then by that time they might be right on top of that vehicle. So that's the concern. Even though they have sight distance, they're not expecting the vehicle to stop abruptly and then back into the driveway. I just want to make that point clear. And then Attorney Green, if you go to the next slide. The same holds true with the other direction. Again, an abrupt stop and having to back up and go into the driveway. Vehicles coming westbound on Peace Avenue may not see the person backing up and cutting across into their lane of traffic into the driveway. Again, it's not an orthodox move. It's different than what you would normally see on the highway on a roadway. And it's something that the reaction time may be less than a normal operation because it's not something you normally would see. And that's part of the concern that we have with this. That's why we want to show you these diagrams and show you what we've looked at so that you can understand, from our point of view, where we see some potential safety issues. And then Attorney Green, if you go to the next slide. And then this is a vehicle who actually would have gone in nose in, and then needing to back out, would have to come all the way through across the other lanes of traffic to be able to turn the vehicle to go west to the post road. So again, this is not an ideal situation. Either backing in or backing out both have issues with maneuvers in and out of this driveway. And because of the volume of traffic, we're concerned. We're legitimately concerned.
And I assume then that if people are backing out with these trucks, you're going to need all of that 15 feet because they're backing out.
Right, but the thing is as you're backing out with a truck, it's hard to see, all the way across because you're coming in because this driveway is not at a 90-degree angle with Peace Avenue. No. It's on an angle, so that makes it even more difficult to look across your right shoulder at the oncoming traffic.
Yep, you're right. Fair enough.
So again, all these things are issues that we feel are problematic and could cause crashes because of their uniqueness and because they're clunky and clumsy and you have a high volume of traffic coming off of I-95.
I have a question.
It's kind of like a perfect storm of things that could create a hazardous condition.
Commissioner Braun, you have a question?
Yeah. So sightline is one thing, and then the odd like way of having to get in and out is another thing. And the two
You're
of them
correct.
coalesce.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right.
So sightline, you don't really have on this driveway. You have it on the other driveway, but you don't have it on this driveway if people in the abutting property park in that parking lot that they're already authorized to use, but they don't really use that much right now.
Yeah, or if that person redevelops the property or builds shrubbery or some type of greenery or tree, or builds some type of extension of the building or some type of non-permanent structure. Any and all of those things could prohibit the sight distance of a vehicle coming out. Nose out.
I'm assuming if they redeveloped it and it was a change of use, we would have to look at it and we would prevent them from doing something that could ruin sightline. But right now you don't have it if people use that parking lot as is already authorized to be done. And it's on their property, so that those parked cars should be considered. That's what you're saying. So they don't have sightline, but then the volume would be low if it was only like the occasional garbage truck. Not a big deal. I know we approved one over on Black Rock Turnpike that had the same questions, but we approved it. It was only a garbage truck, once or twice a week. But you're saying this is where now, could this whole thing be resolved in terms of the volume of use if there was a turnaround on the back end where they could come out the normal way from that? You'd still have the same volume without the sight line if cars are parked on the abutting property. However, you would at least have a normal way of getting out as opposed to backing in and out.
Correct. Right.
Would that solve the problem? Or how much safer would that be, given you don't have sight line necessarily if cars are parked? Yeah.
I mean, if vehicles were to leave face forward, and there was a guarantee that there would be no blockage of the sight line of the adjacent property, because realistically, if this property gets approved for an 830G, another 830G could easily go into the space next door, and there are no setback limits. So theoretically, that site could easily block that view, and it would be within.
But just as we're discussing now sightline, we would be discussing sightline then, I assume. So, you know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, we would have that.
But with an 830G, there's a lot of relaxation of the code. So it would be a pretty big ask to try to make sure that all that were to happen to maintain that sight line and provide whatever application that they were going to put forth. I mean, without seeing a proposal.
My bigger concern is right now.
Yeah.
What's authorized for right now is to have people park in every parking spot right there. They can do that right now without anyone saying no, right?
That's correct. You're absolutely right.
So that destroys sightline. So then the only question is, how much do we care based on how much traffic goes in and out? And how much does it help if the vehicles going in and out of that first driveway do not have to back in and out? How much does that help it if they can put some turnaround in the back? And that would, of course, require redesign and a bunch of things, I imagine. But does that even solve it? That you'd still have the same number of delivery vehicles. And what was it? Attorney Randolph Commissioner Randolph mentioned about these delivery vehicles or Uber or whatever going inside the main driveway. That can't be done now. Why can't that be done now? The main driveway, so they don't go in this ancillary driveway that has no sight line.
The issue would be, how do you prevent them from going in there?
Can they fit?
If you were driving, an Uber vehicle, either to pick somebody up or to drop off food or whatever, how do you know where to go, what to do? And especially because those positions tend to rotate so much, and there's so many of them that they wouldn't be habitual or frequent this site as much. So you just don't know from day to day who's coming to the site.
So the whole issue is that second driveway. It does not have sight line, bottom line.
Yeah, right. And when we feel it creates an unsafe condition. That's where we stand.
Okay.
So,
No, that's
And
fair.
then
You've
one
been
last
transparent
thing.
on that.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, if you have one last point, go ahead.
One last point. So, Attorney Green, if you could just show the last slide.
stand by. Which
I think we're
slide
going to
do you
just
want?
revert back to the original slide that Attorney Green showed at the beginning of his presentation.
Okay, stand by.
Okay, so this shows the site highlighted in red, and the issues that we have here are that it based on the site plan, my review of the site plan, it does not look like there's enough parking for residents and visitors, which means that you'd have to have alternative locations to park. And because Woodrow Avenue and Pease Avenue are not wide enough to accommodate on-street parking for any length of time, we feel that the only option would be to park in that green area, which is the park and ride location, which does not permit overnight parking. So that's one hurdle that you'd have to get through. I believe it's Attorney Green, that's owned by the state, that property?
Yes.
Okay, so that's one hurdle you'd have to get to. The other hurdle that we see is that people would have to cross Pease Avenue with its 7,600 vehicles coming off of I-95. There's no crosswalk. It's a mid-block crossing, and we feel that that would not be safe. And then to exacerbate the problem at night, if you look at those three squares, those are locations where streetlights are located. There are none at the site. So people would be walking at dark across Pease Avenue to get across to their vehicle, basically in the dark. So we're very concerned about that. And then lastly, we feel that there's no safe and viable pedestrian path for people who are going to live in this residential development to get to services along the post road. And that's another concern that we do have that we feel has not been addressed adequately.
Yeah.
And that concludes our presentation.
Mr. Monteleone, just briefly, in terms of the impacts on safety, to what degree and what is the probability of harm as a result of the inadequate sight lines that are presented here?
I think it's a very high probability, considering you have people who don't know the area, who don't come there frequently, who are in a rush and back in and out of the driveway versus 7,600 vehicles coming off of the highway. I find that there's a good chance, a great chance that there could be crashes there, a high probability there would be crashes there because of that, and because, as I mentioned, the backing in and out method of vehicles getting into that site is very uncommon, and people driving on a road coming off of an interstate highway are not going to judge that very easily. Where a vehicle goes past the driveway and then abruptly backs up to go into the driveway, they're not going to read that situation very quickly. It's going to be something that happens very, very fast. They're coming off of a 55, 60 mile an hour road, come down the ramp, and then they come here and they get this particular scenario thrown at them. It's something that would cause a lot of concern for me.
And the likelihood of harm, in your opinion, to person and property?
I think that with people, especially Uber drivers and others who need to turn over deliveries and passengers quickly to make money, they'll be in a rush. They might not be as careful, and then it's a recipe for crashes to occur.
So I'm
This is not
asking
like
you,
this is not like a normal intersection where cars are coming at each other at 90 degrees, where there's a stop sign and people yield right of way. You can see everybody in front of you. these are all kind of bastardized situations that are unique to this particular location that will not be common to most people, and it could cause problems.
But
Absolutely.
if you had to quantify the probability of harm,
I think it would be just a matter of time before there was a crash because of that sort of toxic mix of all the factors that I just threw in there about abruptly backing up, about people rushing to make deliveries and to drop people off and pick people up, and people coming off of a 55-mile-an-hour highway. All those conditions, I think, are atypical and would be a recipe for likely opportunity for crashes.
100%.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Any further questions, Attorney Green? I see it. Hold on, Attorney Green. Anything else? Because you had a little, I assume, some additional questions, or did you for Mr. Monteleone?
I don't have.
I'm finished. Thank you.
Attorney
I
Green,
be happy to answer questions.
But
okay.
I do have a few more points, but I see the commission has questions for Mr. Monteleone.
Okay, Attorney Commissioner Harrison.
Yeah, just going back to the diagram that we saw last, where you, Mr. Monteleone, where you were highlighting that state parking lot. Now, how many spaces would that accommodate if there could be overnight parking there?
So that goes all the way down to where Peace Avenue meets up with the off ramp. So that would be a considerable number of spaces. I mean, I don't know the exact measurement, but it's probably a couple of 100 feet. So you could probably fit at least 20 vehicles in there at least, maybe more, maybe 40. Actually, 40.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I would agree. I mean, the Woodrow Avenue intersection. I lived on Woodrow Avenue, and I just remember being late for work and having to hop on 95. That stop sign was sometimes optional because you wanted to make the light go onto Post Road. So, and I've done a few site visits myself down here since we've been reviewing this application, and it's very busy. It's just very narrow, busy, and I agree with your commentary or your professional opinion, I should say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Levy, you're on mute.
Looking at the site plan that was just up, it appears there's a sidewalk that abuts the parking spaces. The gray area on your depiction, your site that you were using for the sight lines, does that gray area extend to the edge of the parking lot or to the edge of the sidewalk?
Let me get that up.
Yeah.
If you compare the
yeah,
two.
sure. If you could point out the area, Commissioner, that you're referring to.
Yeah. Yeah, your gray area, which is hair of the dog, extends to the edge of the parking spaces, but the aerial shows about a 6-foot sidewalk in between the parking spaces and the edge of the building. So my question is the edge there where the parking spaces is, or is there a sidewalk that's not shown there?
The sidewalk is not shown. Like I said, we did not have CAD files when we did this.
So the
we had to do
sidewalk
everything
would be
off.
sidewalk.
Yeah,
Is part of the gray area.
There's no sidewalk in front of the hair of the dog.
Or well, what appears to be a side. There's
no sidewalk. It's just the park. You just park there. You
well,
can tell from the
area.
It goes right up like a.
You see that tan area?
That's the sidewalk to enter hair of the dog.
Yeah. So my question is that sidewalk under the gray area on your sightline depiction?
I believe so.
That's not a sidewalk. That's an overhang.
It's an overhang. Yeah.
All right. I mean, but it's for lack of, yeah, I see that. I'm looking at Google Maps, but there is like somewhat what look to be a sidewalk. It's a parking lot. It goes into a walkway and then into the thing, into the building. So his question is the gray area, does that include the overhang and this walkway area?
The stalls look a little bit short here, so I think they're covering over some of the stalls, I believe. Again, I'd have to take a look at what the drafts person did.
Okay.
I'm not sure exactly where the line of demarcation is with that particular
Okay,
that view.
that's fine.
Yeah.
There is a very narrow walkway alongside the building in front of the parking spaces.
Yes, and that we were asking the question about whether that the gray area that was included earlier was included that walkway or not, and I think the answer is he's not sure without having the CAD files, which is fine. So,
yeah, I think that's a good.
Any additional questions, Commissioner Levy?
No.
Okay. Any additional questions from the commission?
I've got two specific questions for Mr. Monteleone.
Go ahead.
What is the width of Woodrow Avenue? You said you couldn't accommodate parking. I was just looking at the some of the Google Earth imagery. It looks like cars do park there. Do you know of the width of Woodrow? Because you said you couldn't park on Woodrow, but it looks like from the Google Earth imagery there is parking there.
Well, I didn't say that you couldn't park. I'm saying that you'd have to go around the car and potentially go into the other lane of traffic.
Wanted to, no, on Woodrow.
Oh, on Woodrow. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I mean, you could park there, but it's what is it, 30 feet or less? Woodrow.
I'm looking at Google Earth and I see cars parking there. And you said that cars couldn't park there, so I just wanted to clarify that. The second is, I think your point about parking in the park and ride and crossing Keys is it's a good concern. It's a busy road, but you also said that street lighting was inadequate.
There's no proximate street light to that location.
Yeah. So
again, we didn't do any testing of lighting, but
right. Yeah, no, you showed your diagram where the street lights were, and they were closer to Cormandel, Hair of the Dog, the adjacent property.
Right.
So street lighting is apparently is inadequate. There is parking available on Woodrow, and that if you eliminated that second driveway and relocated the trash to Woodrow, would that address the issue?
It depends on all of how the movements would be made.
If you eliminated the loading dock, because I think your diagram showing the back out and back in were they told a convincing story. This is a problem. But if you were to eliminate that second, basically the loading dock and relocate the trash to Woodrow Avenue, would that resolve the issue?
Okay, then where would the Uber Eats and all that activity occur?
They could come in
the same place.
Yeah, they could come in the main driveway. The only thing is like a large UPS truck would either have to improvise, and you're from the city, so people do this, but there's a parking lot across the street. So I think there is accommodation in the area for a larger truck, but a larger. We usually have the larger UPS trucks here, not the vans.
I can't say for sure without seeing a site plan and an overall plan for deliveries and for how the site would operate.
That's fine. Attorney Green, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to just jump in briefly because, look, we're throwing, I get it. We've been throwing a lot of rocks at the applicant here, but the reality is that Mr. Zibin is not generally opposed to this development. He is concerned about this particular safety concern and what the things that we have discussed and what the commission might consider. And I just have to say again that the applicant has been extremely cooperative. We spent a lot of time and we appreciate the applicant's efforts. But Mr. Zibin may speak for a moment on his own behalf. But what we've talked about and is the possibility of somehow reconfiguring the traffic on the site, either create a pull-off where my cursor is here, or some sort of a facility here where there's a side spur almost, or something that would accommodate a delivery vehicle or two here, sort of in parallel, coming westbound on Peace Avenue. So I know, again, we've been throwing a lot of rocks here and coming down hard on the applicant, but it's not the only aspect, generally speaking, is this one public health and safety issue that's motivated Mr. Zibin here. And Elliot, feel free to jump in. I think the commission would like to wrap this up. But
let me say one thing before we jump in, because I can see the time. As I said, we need to finish this application hearing tonight for a variety of statutory time frames. Our normal curfew is 10 o'clock, so we will not be able to get to the other items on the hearing: Chester Place, Catamount Road, and Fairfield University. I apologize for that, but as you've heard, we've been kind of going through. I think if you've been here, you've heard what we've done. So to the extent that anybody's here for those applications, they will be heard the next meeting. Correct, Mr. Wendt?
That remains to be seen. Fairfield U will likely be in March, but Catamount and the other will.
Okay. Well, that's fair. That's fine. But I mean, I want to tell you now because I don't want anybody wait. If I had a better sense of this 20 minutes ago, I would have said something. But we do need to go beyond our normal curfew to meet these statutory deadlines for this application. But after that, we will not be hearing any other hearings tonight. So in case anybody wants to jump off, obviously feel free to do so. So Mr. Green,
we're gonna wrap up in 4 minutes. I hope. This went farther than I ever expected, but I don't know if Mr. Zibin, do you want to be heard at all?
I would just like to say a few words.
Go ahead.
I think my primary concern here is just simply the basic design of the entrance to the property. Though if the entrance to the lobby is designed, you look at the way it's planned, the primary entrance to the building is off of this secondary driveway. The other primary driveway is really access to the parking garage for automobiles. It's not really designed to be the primary entrance to the building. The primary entrance to the building is to the lobby, which is accessed from the secondary driveway. I live at Southport Woods. My section of the building has 8 units in it, and every single day we have UPS, we have FedEx, we have Amazon, we have Ubers, we have elderly people being picked up to go to the doctors. There's quite a bit of traffic. And when you have the lobby entrance to the building, which is where packages are going to be dropped off, where people are going to be picked up, when that access is really off of that secondary driveway based upon the design of the building, you're not going to prevent people from using that driveway. If a truck pulls in forward, by the time it backs out and the driver, who's on the left-hand side of the vehicle, has a sight line out of the window to look up toward exit 19, The back end of the truck is in the middle of the traffic lane. It's just, to me, common sense and looking at the design, looking at the sight lines, looking at reality, that this property, we're building a residential property on an exit ramp from an interstate highway. If this property were out in a rural area of Fairfield on a quiet little street, this probably would not be as big a concern. This is essentially an exit ramp of I-95. The applicant's own traffic study shows 7,400 vehicles a day. 97% of those vehicles are westbound from exit 19 toward the post road, which means that the travel lane that is closest to the property is going to receive 97% of the traffic. To me, this is an accident waiting to happen. If you have suggested that maybe a UPS driver will pull into the park and ride across Pease Avenue and carry their boxes across Pease Avenue to the lobby of the building to drop them off, I don't think that's a realistic assumption. I think people are going to use that driveway as a primary ingress and egress for deliveries day in and day out, and I think it's dangerous. I appreciate everything that the developer, the applicant, has done to satisfy some of our concerns as far as the aesthetics and the curb appeal of the building. I really appreciate everything they've done. The one thing that they didn't address is the inherent problem with the lobby being primarily accessed from the secondary driveway and providing a traffic pattern or traffic flow for vehicles to access that lobby area, that entranceway to the building. It's my primary concern. I think it's dangerous. I think it's accidents waiting to happen. And I guarantee you that if this gets built this way, there will be accidents there, and hopefully no one will be injured.
Attorney Green?
Thank
Yes,
you very,
just
very much
briefly.
for all the time.
Attorney
you
Green,
did.
can I just answer one question I received before that I wasn't able to answer? I have an answer now.
Go ahead.
Sure. So the question I received was on Woodrow Avenue, parking on Woodrow. So Woodrow is only 24 feet wide. So if a line of cars park on there that would be going to the residential development, that would eliminate 8 feet of the 24, which means you'd only have 16 feet for vehicles to pass each other in each direction. And that would be very, very tight. I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Attorney Green?
The highway design manual, which I've submitted, has several components, and one of them is safe stopping distance, and the other one refers to these intersection sight lines. The applicant has not provided a diagram that shows that they can establish safe intersection sight distance from the second driveway. I was sharing that drawing. I'll share it again. This was the revised drawing that was submitted. As you can see, the applicant measures 15 feet from the edge of travel to establish safe sightline from the primary driveway. The applicant also establishes the safe stopping sight distance. That is, for vehicles coming westbound, they need 144 feet. A vehicle approaching from the west needs 144 feet for a safe stop. Those things have been established. So the sight line from the primary driveway is established, but no analysis was provided with respect to the second driveway because it can't be provided because it doesn't exist. Look, again, I know we keep saying it. We appreciate everything that the applicant has done. Mr. Monteleone has testified that there's a high probability, and he did consent that there's 100% likelihood of harm presented by this particular layout and this configuration. we recognize the need for affordable housing. Once again, we have no problem. Other than this driveway, there is no problem. We appreciate the accommodations that the applicant has provided on every point except this. So if there's a way to send this back to the applicant and to work out another way to provide safe access into the site, and in fact, the commission might send it back with that condition and might, the applicant could come back with an adequate solution to this delivery problem, the second driveway issue. And that's again, the only issue that Mr. Zivin, or that every concern he has springs from that. So again, I think the commission knows by now, based on the number of developments you've heard under 8-30G, what the standard is. And regardless of who lives in that building, whether it's a market rate building or 100% affordable, under every circumstance, anyone who lives there is entitled and should and must have safe ingress and egress from the site. And unfortunately, the applicant just hasn't demonstrated that with this plan. So I would, again, urge the commission and to encourage the applicant to stick with this plan, but come up with a solution that satisfies that concern. I greatly appreciate the patience of the commission this evening, and this went far longer than I ever expected and that any of us expected. And once again, I appreciate it. On behalf of Mr. Zivin, I want to thank you for your patience and your thoughtful questions.
Thank you, Attorney Green. Is there any member of the public that wishes to be heard? Any other member of the public that wishes to be heard on this application? If you're calling in, please press *6 to unmute yourself. Hearing none. Any other further questions from the commission? Hearing none, I'll close the public comment portion of this application. Attorney Fallon, back to you for rebuttal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, members of the commission, for your hard work and your willingness to stay later than the normal curfew. I'll be trying to be thoughtful about that and direct my remarks succinctly. I mean, I think the first place we need to start is obviously the facts of the record. And the one fact I guess I'll start with is there was a question early on in the proceedings about whether or not the original plan as submitted showed these two driveway locations. And the answer to that is they did. And in fact, if you look at the Town Engineering Department memorandum of January 9th, 2024, under their findings, they say, quote, site access is via one main driveway and one secondary driveway. So the driveways have been there since the beginning. You also have your traffic report and the testimony of Mr. Cipolla. What Mr. Cipolla testified to and what his traffic report demonstrates is in fact that there's no question that the main driveway to this facility meets the ISD standard. There is no doubt also that when we measured, and we did in fact make an analysis, a site distance analysis on the secondary driveway, that although it did comply with an ISD standard, it did in fact have that sight line interrupted over adjacent properties and vehicles that park there. So what we did, which was particularly appropriate for what is known in the trade as a low volume service driveway, is we prepared an SSD analysis of that secondary driveway to supplement the ISD analysis which we have done. And that confirmed this secondary driveway, this low volume service driveway, did in fact meet the SSD requirements. That was in fact not only found, and indeed we did in fact provide a drawing to everyone, including Mr. Green, pursuant to paragraph 3 of our agreement to show how that laid out. So let's stop for a minute and just realize two things as we proceed through this. One, the main driveway here is not an issue. It conforms to the ISD standard, and your town engineer has confirmed that. Because of obstruction involving properties and parked cars, we couldn't meet the ISD requirement unobstructed. So what we did, which was a proper thing to do with regard to this low volume service driveway, was we conducted an SSD analysis, and indeed your town engineer, for this record, on January 9th confirmed that. Now, it's also been overemphasized in these proceedings in terms of who's going to use this low service driveway. Mr. Randolph is correct that if you go back to your notes from the original hearing, the concerns basically were for large vehicle delivery trucks, garbage trucks, and the like. And as part of our agreement with Sasquatch, and at the time, Mr. Zivin, we agreed that we would restrict that driveway to such vehicles. The discussion of Uber and other such things, it seems to me, is misplaced. But one thing is overlooked here that maybe makes this easier for the commission. We've reduced the number of units here by 3, which means that we now have flexibility and some excess parking on the site. Because we had 23 units, now we have 20. If it helps the commission, if it helps Mr. Zivin, we can certainly designate one of those spaces off of the main driveway, appropriately located near the entranceway for delivery vehicles of the type that are of concern. So even though we are meeting the standard, we want to point out to you that we do have that flexibility at this point based upon our reduction in the number of units. The other thing I'd want to point out in terms of all of the scenarios, and I'll be addressing those more in a minute, you have all the accident data here for this site. And what the accident data does not show that there's been any incidents with the existing 90-degree parking on both sides of the road with vehicles backing in and out of spaces. As Mr. Monteleone created the impression was an accident waiting to happen. If there was an issue with backing out and making cars stop to allow them to pull out, which he said with trucks backing in and out from both directions, then why isn't it reflected in the accident data? Why isn't there any accident data to support that? At the end of the day, with regard to this, the town engineer has examined this traffic report, he's examined the sightline analysis, and he has provided you his unequivocal opinion that the intersection site distance follows the town standard for a moderate or busy driveway. He has confirmed, your record confirms that your own town engineer, based upon, quote, these calculations and measurements listed in the applicant's engineer's report, they meet and satisfy engineer practices and standards for site distances. Those are the facts on the record. Now we get to some of what you've heard tonight. We hear about, oh, we've got to be careful because somebody may build a structure there someday and that could obstruct, or somebody maybe put landscaping in place and, that could block it. And, parking spaces next door, they could also cause problems, etc. Well, when I get to my summary in chief, I'm going to remind you again of what the law is involving an 8-30G. The record must establish more than a mere possibility of harm to a substantial public interest. The record must contain evidence as to a quantifiable probability that a specific harm will result from the application as is granted. You've got that memo I submitted to you. That's the Supreme Court talking, and they're talking specifically about an 8-30G. So at the end of the day, whatever the concerns are, good faith or not, in terms of the driveway situation, what we have is a primary driveway for this facility that is clearly meeting every standard that could be imposed, and that's not disputed by the opponents, and it's in fact verified by your engineering department. We have a secondary low volume driveway, which we agreed to limit as a low volume driveway for trash pickup and major deliveries at the express request of Mr. Zivin and others. And now that's being turned on its head in terms of becoming a throughway for delivery pickups and Ubers and so on and so forth. That's unrealistic, but it doesn't really matter because your town engineer has specified that it meets the standard and that the calculations are correct and that it is safe. But if it makes everyone feel better, because we've reduced the number of units to 20, we can specify one space, and that can be done with signage so people will know what's going on. And if the Uber driver comes once, he'll know the second time, and that should help eliminate the problem. So what we're talking about here is, first of all, again, I appreciate Sasquanog's good faith efforts and Mr. Green's. We are pleased to have been able to come to you tonight after a considerable amount of work with a 8-30G application in Southport that has the non-opposition of the Sasquanog Association. We've reduced the number of units and we've redesigned the building in accordance with their requests. And so now we come to what we're left with. I'm not going to be redundant. The hour is late. I've stated for this record the need for affordable housing as demonstrated in our town by our own affordable housing plan as prepared by the Affordable Housing Committee in May of 2022. So we all know and agree that we need affordable housing. Let's go to the record that would be reviewed with regard to this matter, depending upon the action you take. We have the code enforcement meetings of September 5th, 2023. All the comments and recommendations of the code review committee, the code review have been addressed and complied with. The building construction complies with or exceeds all requirements of the building and the fire code, including a fire suppression system. You have your final sign off from your engineering department with regard to matters pertaining to drainage and the like in an email from Ms. Jane dated September 19, 2023. That's in addition to the January 9th email from the town engineer pertaining to the sight lines. The sight lines that the town engineer says have been correctly and properly established and are safe. We've received approval from the WPCA, not for 20 units, but for 40, but we're building 20. And the fire marshal's comments in the code enforcement plans are, quote, nice access to building, and water supply, hydrant across the street, quote, requires NFPA sprinkler system, quote, exits are good for all floors. You have the traffic impact study prepared by Mr. Cipolla and all the material that was submitted with that. You have the comments of the police department in the code meeting. The only question they raised was make sure that you have a flag man, et cetera, during construction. You also have an approval here from a 2010 approval of a medical office building. That approved project, we submitted all that material to you. It had a higher site generation during peak hours than what we proposed. The project that was approved for this site estimated peak hour traffic at 15, and that was higher than what we proposed at 9 or 12. And indeed, the background traffic at that time was similar, 778 versus 786 in the morning, 401 versus 444 in the afternoon. But let's not lose sight of the numbers. The record indicates that a medical office building was approved on this site. And now we're quibbling about an affordable housing application under 8-30G because one neighbor who lives in Southport Woods doesn't think that the low volume driveway for excess vehicle traffic involving deliveries and the like is safe. Although your engineering department, your police department, your fire department say contrary to that. I've touched on the traffic. It's a low traffic generator. It's going to produce 9 to 12 vehicle trips during weekday mornings and weekday afternoon. That's less than 1% increase in overall traffic volume. It's a drop in the bucket scenario based upon what is there now. I've covered the sight lines. More importantly, your town engineer has covered the sight lines. We've submitted to this record at your request data from the Moritz 8-30G that you approved some time ago, confirming the ITA generated findings and conclusions of our traffic report are accurate. And this is a piece of property that sits in the design commercial district, where under your regulations, as you know, a plethora of more high volume, more intense development and activities could be undertaken. And that brings us all the way back to where we started out. Oh, and by the way, on parking, somebody made a comment tonight with regard to parking. Well, our parking ratio was 1.3. With the elimination of the number of units, it's 1.5. That is consistent with other parking ratios for other 8-30Gs that you have approved. It's also consistent with judicial findings where our courts have found that a parking ratio of 1.2 was found to be sufficient. And that's the Garden Homes case with regard to both the Supreme and the Appellate Court. So what does that whole record leave you with? I'm sure Mr. Zivins' concerns are well intended, but he's not your engineering department. Neither is Mr. Monteleone. He's not your fire department. He's not your police department. And all these things he's talked about, these bad scenarios that could occur if somebody built this, or if somebody put landscaping here, or if another 8-30G was built, I come back and I end with the record must establish more than a mere possibility of harm to a substantial public interest. The record must contain evidence as to a quantifiable probability that a specific harm will result if the application is granted. That's the law. But, you know, we shouldn't have to be arguing it so almost confrontationally. And I'm not thinking that you are being confrontational, because this is a great application. It brings affordable housing to an area of our town, Southport in particular, where we need affordable housing in the town and generally. And we can do that in this case based upon the diligent work that we've done with other town agencies and with our neighbors in the person of Sasquatch and our general neighbors, who you've not heard a whole lot from. We can do that safely and effectively for the good of our community, and work this statute the way it should work, where you work hand in hand with the community, with the neighborhood, and with the residents to come up with a plan that provides us much needed affordable housing, but in a sensitive way by a local developer who from the start has emphasized trying to work with the neighborhood and the commission, and I think it's been successful, and the record demonstrates this project is safe and meets the standard for approval under 8-30G. I thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Fallon. Any questions for Attorney Fallon? Hearing none, Attorney Fallon, anything further?
Just thank you for your patience.
No, thank you for yours as well. So that ends the rebuttal portion. I'll close the hearing on this application. And seeing as the time is now 10:20, the remaining applications will get put on to another future meeting that the staff will schedule. And I'll adjourn the meeting tonight. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Stay home, but I don't have to say that. We're already home.
Yep.
Bye-bye.